Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Jake, the Muslim Metaphysician. Sorry for being late, guys. I had to delay the stream 1 hour because I was getting some things ready for the stream and a little bit busy. And then I was another 10 minutes late. So I do apologize for that, guys. But I hope everybody's doing well, inshallah. Haven't seen you guys in a minute. Man, it's been a while since when's the last time I did a YouTube live? SubhanAllah. Let's see, when's the last date I did a YouTube live? Was, man, like 2 months ago. So about two and a half months ago. So anyway, for those who don't know, there was a recent debate. I'm going to get cracking right into this. There was a recent debate between our brother, Daniel Haqiqatchu, from the Muslim Skeptic, and someone who is not our brother, with all honesty and any respect that may be due, which we'll see in this video that there's really no respect due to Javed Hashmi. I would like to prefer to call him JaFED. I think that this is Brother Daniel and some other people on Twitter came up with this. I don't know exactly the origin, but I thought it's a fitting name because, as we'll see, this guy is really, he's got nothing when it comes to knowledge in terms of the Islamic tradition, really no care in terms of accurately representing the other side and showing where you disagree with them. And, look, it's fine to disagree on these points, and what Daniel's debating is not, because this is between kufr and iman. But anyway, when these guys disagree, they have nothing but dishonesty, dirty tactics, gish galloping, which Daniel called them out on many times, all kind of nonsense and foolishness that they come with. And we'll see that this guy is nothing. And the main thing, one of the main reasons why I'm doing this video, mashallah, I think Brother Daniel did a fine job in refuting JaFED. But there are a couple things that I want to hit on and I want to highlight, you see. And Brother Daniel chose not to highlight them, and I thought it was the right move. Why? Because it was totally off track, most of these things from the debate. But these are things that I'm interested in. And I want to highlight some of those points and show how this guy has no knowledge of the Islamic tradition and no knowledge of the ethnic position whatsoever. And if he does, then he's just a dishonest, you know what, right? Just a dishonest son of a gun. So, and I think it's a little bit of both. I think part of it, again, is his dishonesty, and part of it is his ignorance. He has no idea about the Islamic tradition and what we actually believe. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to get into this, guys. This is going to be probably a long stream because I got like 7 pages of notes, and I'm going in detail on this stuff, reading you quotes from all of these supposed Western academics that, JaFED, and we know Khalil the Kafir Andani, who is his best friend and buddy. We know because if you go back to my debate with him, some of the things that he's saying and quoting are literally copy and paste from Khalil Andani and what he said. And even some of the mannerisms or things that he said, like when he tried to, at the end, give Brother Daniel a grade, he said, well, I'm going to grade Brother Daniel, but he didn't come out with the report card like Andani did, which is so silly because we know he put this together before the debate. It was already on a prepared slide. Anyway, man, these guys are two sides of the same coin. And, there's something that Brother Daniel said in the actual debate, which I'm going to play later on, which is so important. It was so important, and it highlights exactly what the theme of this video is. First of all, who won the debate? JaFED, you got slaughtered. You got slayed on a silver platter. Okay? Daniel made mincemeat of you. I mean, there's so many different ways I can explain it, but it was a complete embarrassment. You had absolutely nothing but gish galloping, refusing to answer simple, direct questions, right? all sorts of baby games that the guy was playing throughout the whole thing, whining about being interrupted. And then he had to do a minute here and a minute here back and forth during the open flow conversation part. Couldn't even handle it. He folded under pressure. I mean, the guy broke like a pretzel in half, man. He couldn't even take being questioned by Daniel. He said, hold on a second, I can't take it. I got to do we can't do this free flowing conversation. I need the 1.5 minutes time. What a baby, man. What a complete baby. Anyway, let's get to some of this. Let's get to some of this more intellectual side of what I'm going to be saying here. What I'm going to focus on mainly from the debate, because look, the debate is like 6, almost 7 hours long, right? I cannot go through the whole thing, but the long and short of the review is exactly what I just said, right? He got slaughtered on a silver platter, right? No sense of even still tweeting on Twitter. You probably should revoke your request at Harvard. Just quit while you're down. As you know, some people say quit while you're ahead, quit while you're down, because man down, right? Just quit. Simple as that. Don't even go finish your PhD because it's a waste of time. And I'm going to show you these fake, phony Starbucks succularists, which I'm going to call them. I'm calling them Starbucks succularists, fake scholars. That's what they are. Why? Because they claim to be Muslim, but they're zindiqs. They're murtads. They're not Muslims. They're kuffar. And they want to go and have some semblance of what they think is a Muslim name, right? Hashmi or Khalil. And they want to get a PhD from Harvard or somewhere else. We don't care where it's from, right? And they want to put their agenda forward because some people, and even some of my audience, maybe you guys don't realize this, which we need to start highlighting. Daniel has been doing this with some of the, things that he's been saying, but we really need to highlight this, right? Because it's not only about, who is right in this situation. We need to expose what is going on here. Academia is not what you guys think. And I'm not going to bring you a conspiracy theory. I'm going to show you facts to show you that these guys who are doing their PhD dissertations, and this guy got his degree from Harvard, and this one went to Yale, and this one went to Princeton, and this one went to Oxford, wherever you went, we don't care. As Muslims, and what this video is going to show, you fake scholars sitting at Starbucks, you know the Starbucks menu more than you know the Qur'an and Sunnah. That's what you are. You're a Starbucks fake scholar succularist, because all you do is sit there at Starbucks, sitting with a bunch of your goony friends, bunch of your weirdo friends, sucking down your favorite latte, talking about how you're going to take over and infiltrate the Islamic community. Well, guess what? We're here today to tell you, you will not infiltrate, because we are shutting you down. We're here to expose your lies and ignorance. And I have to say it like this. Why am I worked up? Because this is our religion. This is our deen, right? That you are trying to infiltrate and misguide and mislead the people. You're a bunch of shayateen. That's all you are, a bunch of devils. Yes, I said it. Okay? And I have to come with this kind of energy because, some people think, well, the guy's got a degree from Harvard. So, you know what? He knows how to button up his shirt and put on a tie and try to look like he's swift, try to talk like he's swift. But in reality, it's nothing but hot air and lies and distortions and misrepresentations and gish galloping and running from Daniel's arguments. That's all it is, you see? So I'm going to show you that this guy should never be listened to, never taken seriously. Harvard, if you see this, look, I would say to hire me, because then I would help you out in actually getting the proper people. But I don't want to be a part of Harvard. So that ain't going to work. But Harvard, if you do see this, shout out to Harvard. Get this guy out of here. He ain't worth nothing. He's worth nothing. He's got nothing but lies, distortions, misrepresentations. But, Harvard, I don't know, they're probably in on it. So they're going to be laughing at this video if they even watch it. But I'm going to back up everything I'm saying that JaFED, yes, we said it, JaFED, okay, because we know you're on the payroll. We know you're trying to infiltrate the religion. But look, the majority of Muslims are not confused by you. Let's be honest. So this is not, I don't have this energy because, whoa, boom, 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 we're pressing the big button, alert. No, we got to calm down with that, because we know in reality, most Muslims, as will see from Brother Daniel, who know anything about Islam, would look at this guy sideways, like, who's this guy? You know, we don't know the difference between him, who's claiming to be a Muslim, and the other guy across the room at Starbucks, sucking down his favorite latte. We don't know the difference between him and this wannabe. You see? But anyway, let's get to it. That's enough of my rant to let you guys know what's going on here. And now I'm going to show you, okay. Oh, before I get into it, just a couple quick things. I'm going to have some upcoming videos that I'm planning on doing with Abdurrahman. You know, mashallah, he's a busy family man. I've got my own things going on. So, but we got some videos regarding Aqidah and certain issues that we're going to discuss in a lot of detail and show you guys, inshallah. Hopefully people can learn and benefit from it. Besides that, there's really not much to announce. Yeah, so let's just get into the video then. Now, as I said, many of the points the guy brought up is copy and pasted. JaFED is copy and pasting from Andani. And again, the key point I want people to notice, don't be confused when you see doctor in front of a name or PhD. Just because it says that doesn't mean that we take these people seriously. In fact, it should warn you most of the time that this person is a shaitan. He's trying to infiltrate the Muslim community. He's claiming to be a doctor, okay, of Islamic studies or whatever they call it. Can't even read Arabic, right? Can barely even pronounce his own name correctly, right? Khalil running around saying, oh, my name is Khalil. Khalil, I'm Khalil. And Hashmi, who the hell knows what he's calling himself? But anyway, you know, these guys, they can't even pronounce their own name right, which is supposed to be in Arabic. And we think they're going to access our Islamic texts in Arabic and read them and tell us what it's all about and break it down. Come on, man. You guys are a joke. I don't care. You claim you have a master's in Arabic. Look at Khalil. He claims that he's got a whatever. He specializes in the Qur'an. Can't even read it properly. What, are you kidding me? Let's see him recite some Qur'an. Let's see him read a whole page of Qur'an. He can't read nothing. These guys, they're complete jokes. They haven't read our sources, right? And as I said, they know the Starbucks menu and the ingredients of their favorite latte more than they know Qur'an wa Sunnah. Okay? So don't be confused by these people. Now, I'm going to play a video, a part of the video, inshallah. Okay? I'm going to show you a part of the video where Brother Daniel sums up what I want to say in this video so beautifully, I couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, so let me show you this. I said, wow, man, I was thinking the same thing, you see, and he just completely busted this guy down. Okay, let me try to share my screen. Okay. I'm going to play it. This is so good, I'm going to play it on normal speed. 1.5 is too quick. It's too quick. And guys, if you know me, how I get down, I always get passionate. People starting to say, Jake, what happened with you? You're getting crazy, or you're doing this with the Ash'aris or the Maturidis. Guys, no matter who I'm refuting or what I'm talking about, whether you Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, deviant sect, whatever you are, Zindiq, like these clowns, Christian, atheist, come on, I bring the same energy, okay? Maybe it's all the time not appropriate, or maybe I'm not doing it the right way. That's fine. You can criticize me that way, but everybody pretty much gets it equally. Now let me show you this. Okay, this is a video I got here. It's a private video, so you won't be able to find it. Don't worry, guys. It's called JaFED's Foolishness. This is his highlight clip from the thing. But here I want to show you from the video of Brother Daniel saying so clearly exactly what the audience needs to hear right now. And then I'm going to show that what Daniel said is so true by exposing how many lies and ignorant claims this guy made in just like his opening statement, 5 minutes. Then I'm going to replay this at the end, and you can say, wow, what a bookend. What a bookend statement by Daniel, how he came through with the statement. Anyway, let's listen to what he said here.
Yeah, it would be better for you. Like, this is embarrassing. Like, I can't believe that you are taken as a serious historical scholar. I think this debate has really exposed you as a charlatan. This is not academic at all. You can't publish any of this kind of stuff. And this is why I agreed to have this debate with you, because I want to expose, like, what is the reality of Harvard academics. Like,
exactly, Daniel. This is why we want to expose the reality of you fake scholars claiming that you're a Muslim and walking around with PhD or doctor in front of your name. You're a bunch of phonies. Muslims are not going to take you seriously after this. We got you locked down. We want to expose the reality of these fake Harvard academics. Go ahead.
Like, Harvard academics are not people to be intimidated by. These Islamic studies scholars. They're people like Juan Cole saying that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is like Martin Luther King, or he's like a senator and he has this peace march into Mecca. Like, this is the kind of nonsense that your institution, your departments produce. And every traditional Muslim, you know, even like a first-year student of Islamic studies, can completely destroy all of your arguments.
Exactly. That's what we're going to show. Anybody who knows the basics about Islam would laugh at these guys. But there are some masakin, there's some miskeen individuals who maybe watch some of these streams. So for the small percentage, we say, look, we're going to throw you a bone. We'll do this video for you. And we show you. We just expose it. Because Daniel, we're going to let him talk. He's not going to go through too many examples of what he's saying. But after he's done, I'm going to go through all of them and show you, look, all this foolishness this guy's talking. He doesn't know anything.
They just need, you know, certain pointers. For example, this debate, I'm bringing all of these historical sources from your own academics, from your own books that are seen as authoritative by your side. And you can't even address any of those. Like,
remember that. So when I bring you all of these Western academics, right, that publish with Brill and all these different places, let's see if you can respond to what I actually bring forward, Hashmi. Can you actually respond to it? Because your buddy Khalil couldn't respond to it. He couldn't. In fact, he made the same exact claims about this whole thing, reason and revelation. You guys are Fideists and all this same nonsense, which Daniel didn't even look. Why didn't he go after it? Because it wasn't the subject of the debate. But you see, with this JaFED's tactics, he's trying to throw it out there to make Daniel look like some rogue, you know, strange individual who's anti-rational and all this. No, he's not. He's not at all. And that's not what the Hanbali Aqidah or fiqh teaches. Not at all what you guys claim. But he was right not to fall for that. He didn't even go after this. Why? Because it was a red herring, had nothing to do with the debate. They were talking about patriarchy. What does it have to do with being, you know, the idea of reason and revelation? Come on, man.
It's like, this is a complete debunking of your entire claim to be this historical critical scholar. No, it's a joke. You're a propagandist. You're a trained SEAL. And this is why it's so easy.
You are a propagandist and you are a SEAL. See, this is what other people don't know as well. These guys, academia, and I could tell you, I know Christians in academia. I know Muslims in academia. I know atheists in academia. Okay? Some of them are my friends. I know them. I talk to them before they publish works. I know plenty of stories. I had people come to me and say, Jake, look, this is my position, and you know it, but I can't publish on it because I don't have tenure. Wallahi, I've had people tell me that. So you don't even see the reality of what some of these people think. You think it's all intellectual, that, you know, this idea of the academy and Western scholarship and Western academia, that this is, you know, going for their PhD, and this is without any motivation, without any biases, without any hidden agendas from funding and federal government and all this kind of stuff. No, it's just purely intellectual enterprise. Get the hell out of here. Nobody's believing that. This is not a conspiracy theory. I've had them tell me directly, Jake, I can't publish on it because I don't have tenure. I'll get fired. Wallahi. You see? And these people, they have agendas, because when they're in their private rooms and talking, guess what? Some of the people who are around you, they don't like you. So they tell you what you guys, they tell us what you guys are saying. We know what you're saying behind closed doors, what you're trying to do. So don't get it confused, because we are not fools. We know what you're doing. Anyway, let's keep listening.
You're appealing to your credentials at Harvard. I'd recommend not citing that, because basically you're bringing down Harvard's name. And
he said, I recommend you not citing that you were at Harvard, because you're bringing down Harvard's name.
And that's good. You know, people really need to understand that this is what Islamic studies academics are all about. Like, this is the level. Like, it's a joke. Like, you having a degree or a PhD from Harvard, now people will realize that it means really nothing. It means
exactly. People need to realize that just because you got a degree from Harvard, or I don't care if it's wherever you claim, Kentucky, USC, I don't care where you're at. Doesn't matter. We have to look at the facts and who you are and what you're saying and your sources and your references and whether or not you have this agenda and your biases. We're going to look at all that, and most of you, we're going to crumble it down and say you've got nothing. You're worthless. And that's what Brother Daniel is saying, and this is what this video is all about.
Means like the Prophet ﷺ was like MLK or a senator. Like, that's what they're going to associate with Harvard, your Harvard PhD now. Now that we've covered HCM, let's talk about liberal religious reform.
Okay, so there's another part of the video there, which is also very important, which we're going to see later, where Brother Daniel is really working this guy over. I mean, he anticipated what JaFED was going to do. He brought you the liberal bot, right? The liberalist bot. He brought it and he said, look, this is the 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. JaFED, look, he caught him right at step 3, doing exactly what he was doing. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Brother Muhammad Noor for becoming a member. Appreciate that. By the way, guys, if you do want to support, I try to put this in the videos because what happens is YouTube and these different platforms like Patreon, they take so much of a percentage out of it. But the best way to support me really is in the pinned link and what you now see going across the stream, GoFundMe. That's the best way to support my work, because they take only a very small percentage. YouTube and Patreon, they take like 30 and 40%. So it's going, your money's going to these clowns. So yeah, if you do want to support, if you do have that support besides just, you know, the basics of commenting, liking, sharing, and that stuff, if you want to go above and beyond that, then this is the place where to you know, support me. So that's at the GoFundMe page. Anyway, it's pinned as a link in the top of the chat as well. Now back to this JaFED clown. As I was saying, there's that other part of the video where Brother Daniel is going to, you see, he just completely catches this guy. He anticipated exactly what he was going to do. I said, wow, mashallah. You know, Daniel came through and anticipated exactly what the guy was going to do. And then boom, did it and called him out on it right on the spot. He said, look, I see you at step 3 right now. Okay, on this other issue, you're at step 2. And then before you over here at step 1. We got you on the liberalist bot program. We know you. You trying to hack us and infiltrate us, but we actually see the program that you wrote. You see? Anyway, so that's what this video is about. These fake secularists, Starbucks wannabe scholars, we're not taking you seriously. We're exposing you. And now I'm going to validate everything that Brother Daniel said. that this guy is not to be taken seriously. Okay, inshallah. So now I'm going to play from you JaFED's opening statement. Let me share my screen again. Okay, and hopefully, you know, you see, I'm very passionate about this, but you're going to see, inshallah, you're going to learn something from this video. Inshallah, you will learn something from this video, right? We use these deviants and these kuffar to allow us to teach something to our audience, teach something to the listeners, right? Because they got to get something out of it. They just don't want to see clownery here. So anyway, let's listen to it. This is from his opening statement.
This is why Islamic modernism is simply more rational.
Okay, so he had three arguments. One of them is Islamic modernism is more rational than Islamic traditionalism, because Daniel's trying to defend Islamic traditionalism, and JaFED is saying we have to be Islamic modernists. Why? And one of his arguments is going to be Islamic modernism is more rational. And then he goes on to completely straw man the Islamic traditionalist position, including Daniel's position as an ethete, right? We'll see that. And I'm going to break it down. I'm going to show you all the lies and distortions this guy told. In about 5 minutes, you'd be shocked what comes out of his mouth.
Modernists have a high view of human reason, which is God-given, endorsed by the Qur'an, and is what differentiates us from the animals. And
okay, he says Islamic modernists have a high view of human reason. What, as opposed to us, we think reason is nothing, it's garbage, the aql, right, is nothing. We don't believe it's God-given. Of course we believe it's God-given. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to us. And of course it differentiates us from animals, right? So anyway, that's why all the time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala compares or is, you know, chiding people in the Qur'an for not using their reason, what does he compare them to? Cattle, donkeys, etc. So yeah, we agree with that. That differentiates us. Why is he saying that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, look, he created you and he gave you that aql. He gave you that ability to reason, but you're acting like a cow. And why does he mention, think about this, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention the cattle, the cows? Because look how you know, and it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation, but I'm just saying, listen to the analogy, right? These are dumb creatures. Why? Have you ever seen someone go around with a hunting shotgun to try to hunt a cow? Have you ever seen that? You see people hunt deer, and you see people hunt what? Rabbit and whatever, different things, right? Have you ever heard of someone say, you know what, Jake, you want to come with me this weekend that we got off for the weekend? We're going to go hunting some cows. Nobody goes and hunts a cow, because you can walk right up to a cow and put the gun right to the cow's head. It's not even going to flinch. You see? So that's just a sidebar. But anyway, let me continue here with the video.
And we consider it the only means of properly approaching scripture. As rationalists, modernists are open to outside knowledge and wish to advance collective human reason. Whereas traditionalists, especially Hanbalis like Daniel, devalue reason and are fideists who would rather follow.
Okay, so he says he's trying to make it seem like Islamic modernists are so rational and they're all about reason, whereas traditionalists, especially Hanbalis, right, following Imam Ahmed radiyallahu an, devalue reason and are fideists. All right, we're going to see in a second what fideists are. He gives you the definition, but I'm going to show you even more details on it in a second.
Follow unreliable and absurd, especially Hanbalis like Daniel, devalue reason and are fideists who would rather follow unreliable and absurd reports.
So because we are devalue reason and are fideists, that's what makes us to have these silly positions, and we follow unreliable and absurd hadiths. And he's going to give an example.
Which lead to absurd and even morally atrocious beliefs. As fideists, such traditionalists reject any outside knowledge and are parochial in their thinking.
So we reject any outside knowledge. Any outside knowledge, we reject it. That's his claim.
Meanwhile, Islamic modernists look to the expansive and exhaustive Islamic.
Meanwhile, the Islamic modernists, what do? And who does he call the Islamic rationalists? The Mu'tazila, a deviant sect.
tradition, and in this sense, we're actually more traditionalist than them. We look for insights from the Islamic rationalists and the philosophers who they condemn as blasphemous idolaters. Meanwhile, modern-day Salafis like Daniel reject 90% of our tradition. We actually claim to
Daniel
follow
doesn't
and be
reject
inspired from the first
10%.
original theological group, which was the Qadariyah, or the people who have free will, not like the Sunni tradition.
He wants to follow the Qadariyah, which is also another deviant sect. So this guy's following the Mu'tazila. He's admitting it.
Which became fatalist. This is one of the earliest identifiable theological movements in Islam, not Sunnism. This group was absorbed by the Mu'tazila, or the Islamic rationalists, who preceded orthodoxy by far.
He says the Mu'tazila exceeded Islamic traditionalism by far, and he cites the Ash'aris and the Maturidis. Well, Daniel is not an Ash'ari or a Maturidi. He's claiming to be an Athari, and you just attacked him as being an Athari. Now you're trying to put him with the Ash'aris and Maturidis? We agree that they came later. But our position, the Islamic, what you call a traditionalist position, the Athari position, right? We didn't come later than them. And even your own Western academics will admit that what is called the Athari position, or the traditionalist, or the textualist, whatever you want to call it, came before the Ash'aris and Maturidis. So come on, man.
And Mu'tazilis were a major force in Islam for several centuries. The Mu'tazilis had a very high view of human reason. They followed the Qur'an along with moral reasoning and human reason. So Islamic modernists are open-minded. They follow the
Okay,
Qur'an
so look at
along.
this. He says the Mu'tazila had a very high view of human reason, of aql. Okay. So let me ask you this, JaFED, since you're such a liberal. Do you believe what the Mu'tazila believed? Do you guys know one of the things that these people believed? You tell me, what do you think, if this is rational, right? You tell me whether or not you think that this is rational. Who is this person here? Let me see. I don't know who this. Listen, anyway, you guys, if you want to talk nonsense in the chat, go ahead. I don't even have mods. I let people do what they want because you guys are. I don't have time for the foolishness. Anyway, listen. So, what do the Mu'tazila believe? They have a position which is called al-manzila bayn al-manzilatayn. What is this? It is a position of a person who commits what's called a major sin. A major sin in Islam, something like a murder or whatever, the major sins that you guys know. Okay? If a Muslim, someone who is a Muslim or a mu'min, a believer, commits a major sin, the Mu'tazila are famous for saying that person is neither once he commits that sin, that person is neither a believer nor a kafir. He's in a state in between. So, and this is one of the, and this is what they have in common with the Khawarij. These groups like ISIS, and they want to paint out us to be terrorists and all this kind of stuff. What do the Mu'tazila have in common with the Khawarij and what is now these groups like ISIS? They believe that if you commit a major sin, you're no longer a believer just by committing a major sin. We're not talking about shirk and things like that. Committing a major sin, you're out of the fold. You're no longer a believer. You're in, and so the Khawarij said you're straight up, you're way gone, right? The Mu'tazila came up with another position. They said you're in between. You're in a state in between. You're neither a mu'min nor are you a kafir. So you're in between. You're no man's land. And they say that if you die upon that position of committing a major sin without having repented in this life, in the dunya, then you're going to hell and you're gone. You're going to hellfire. So this guy who wants to include the Christians and the Jews and probably the atheists soon enough, all these different groups as being, oh yeah, there are different paths to God. He's a perennialist. Oh yeah, these people could go to paradise. He wants to include them and have this big kumbaya. The Mu'tazila wouldn't be doing that kumbaya. What, are you kidding me? They said if you commit, even if you're a Muslim who believes in Qur'an wa Sunnah, and you commit a major sin, what happens to you? You're no longer a believer. You're in like an intermediate state. Manzila bayn al manzilatayn. You see? And this is what you're claiming is the rational position, which you probably don't even agree with. Do you believe that, JaFED? That if a Muslim commits a major sin, he's no longer a believer? Is that your position? Is that your position? And that person will go to hell forever. Is that your position? Okay. So much for Mr. Logic, right? So much for Mr. Logic here, Mr. Rational. Okay, let's continue.
Along with moral reasoning and human reason. So Islamic modernists are open-minded and are open to outside knowledge and wish to advance collective human wisdom, also like the classical Islamic philosophers. This is the attitude that the classical Islamic philosophers had. They were open to knowledge no matter where it came from, and they would view it very critically. If it aligned with truth, they would accept it. If they didn't, they would reject it and warn against it. But they believed that philosophy was obligatory, and it was important to advance the collective wisdom of humankind, which is a trust given to us by posterity and by God. In fact, Ibn Rushd said that there was an obligation to study philosophy, and that's why the Islamic rationalists and philosophers advanced philosophy and science in the Islamic world, unlike the Hanbali Fideists. So the Islamic philosophers and the Islamic rationalists had a...
He keeps calling us the Hanbali Fideists, and oh yeah, the Islamic philosophers and the Mu'tazila, which we're calling the Islamic rationalists. They're not rationalists. Bring them here. We'll show you what the aql is. They've got nothing. They're not rationalists. But anyway, he wants to keep calling them the rationalists, and we're the Fideists, right? We're just these bunch of idiots, probably hillbillies or whatever, you know, Bedouins, as they want to call us. So, listen, he's trying to paint it out like, oh yeah, we're these happy-go-lucky and we'll take the knowledge from wherever it comes. But that's part of your problem is you will try to take the knowledge from whatever it comes, and you take that knowledge, forget about where the source is, but you take that knowledge that is going against clearly the Qur'an and Sunnah and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed and what he has sent down as his commands and prohibitions. You take that and you distort it, and you take this other Buddhist philosophy over here or whatever you want to go to, what you have your HCM, historical critical method, and you throw the Islamic tradition and our scripture, the naql, under the bus. That's what you do. We don't believe in that. But do we believe that we can take knowledge and sources of information from other places? Sure. You think that we don't believe in medicine, in technology, and certain elements of science? Of course we do. And have everyone that's ever found out some truth in any of those fields always been Muslim? No, of course not. But we don't confuse that with revealed knowledge and say that we are going to use something from one of those fields which is contradictory to the naql, contradictory to the text and our tradition, and throw the text on the bus. That's what we don't do. That's the difference. He's trying to misconstrue it and say, oh, we're like these guys that, you know, we won't even get in, you know, we won't even take modern medicine and technology seriously. What do you think? How am I using this camera and this laptop? What are you talking about?
High view of human reason. Meanwhile, the semi-rationalists who would later form orthodoxy had only an instrumental use of reason, whereas the hadith literalists, who were always a minority, the Hanbalis, they had a very low or dim view of human reason.
So here he claims the Hanbalis and the literalists, the Atheris, and what he says is now the Salafis or Wahhabis, right? We prefer or put reason over revelation. This is what he claims, right? And he says the philosophers put reason over, he says we put revelation over reason. He says the philosophers put reason over revelation. He says for the Mu'tazila, reason equals revelation. Now remember that, Javad, because I'm going to show you when you keep talking about Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah radiyallahu an and disrespecting him and trying to slander what the Shaykh actually believed. I'm going to show you that that's his position, that for us, there can never be a conflict between reason and revelation. They go hand in hand in a glove. Can never be a conflict between them. So you are misrepresenting our position from the get-go when you put these groups together like this. You have no idea what you're talking about. And then he says about the mutakallimin, they prefer, you know, to have reason over or revelation over reason but reason is instrumental use, right? Or I'm sorry, it's an instrumental use of reason. So anyway, we'll see. I'm going to debunk all of this. I'm going to show you from his own Western academics, right, them refuting him.
And Daniel, like I said, is a Hanbali or an Athari. And they had the view that anything that was from a foreign source was by definition anti or un-Islamic because it came from a foreign source. In fact, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the eponymous founder of this school, said that debate, argument, and rational theology are all forbidden. In fact, he would be opposed to Daniel being here today because he's engaging in reasoned debate. The Hanbali scholar Ibn Qudama said that rational theology and philosophy are all bad. Ibn Taymiyyah said logic is bad, and for him, the foreignness of a doctrine is sufficient proof of evidence of its inherent un-Islamic nature.
He says logic is bad. Look how he puts logic is bad, Ibn Taymiyyah. And look at the book he puts up there. Ibn Taymiyyah against the Greek logicians, right? And Halak did a translation of this text. I'm going to read from you and show you this guy has no idea. I don't even know if he read the text. He has no idea what Ibn Taymiyyah's position was in that book and what his intention was. Not at all.
Scholar in the 18th century,
he just puts it up there like logic is bad.
He said logic is pure haram. Reason is actually bad. You shouldn't use reason. Have faith, submit, and acquiesce. People are looking that Muhammadic approach to religion. And in fact, Daniel.
Okay, so let me actually read that for you. He says, let me go back to this text here. He has Ibn Taymiyyah, just logic is bad with an exclamation point, right? Let's see what Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah radiyallahu anhu's position actually was. Well, Halak, in that book, JaFED, which I don't know if you cracked it open, but I'm going to crack it open for you. In the intro, after speaking about Ibn Taymiyyah's positions and what he's trying to do in the text, and what Halak doesn't even fully represent Ibn Taymiyyah properly, and really I think his translation is poor. But anyway, in that text, in the intro to the book, well, Halak, okay, your Western academic, what does he say? He says, it is significant, this is a quote, it is significant that despite his intense disapproval of Greek logic, Ibn Taymiyyah insisted on and never retracted the proposition that the categorical syllogism is formally impeccable. Did you hear that? Let me say that again. Ibn Taymiyyah never retracted the proposition that the categorical syllogism, which is an aspect of logic, is formally impeccable. It's a specific type of syllogism, but don't worry about it. Ibn Taymiyyah, according to Halak, never retracted the proposition that the categorical syllogism is formally impeccable. So his critique of logic is so much more nuanced than, hey, duh, logic is bad. That's not what he's talking about. Ibn Taymiyyah was not against reason or aql or critical thinking. What he was against was certain metaphysical notions that he thought were assumed by certain aspects of Greek logic and how it was being employed at the time. For example, the idea of universals that exist outside of the mind, or the idea that the particular comes prior to the universal when they claim that the universal could be prior to the particular, right? All of these different, and I don't want to complicate it too much, but all of these different ideas that Ibn Taymiyyah was criticizing had nothing to do with just sound aql or critical thinking or regular use of reason, or even the use of syllogisms in certain instances. He didn't have a problem with that whatsoever. And your own scholar, Halak, says that in a text. I just quoted it for you again. Ibn Taymiyyah insisted on and never retracted the proposition that the categorical syllogism is formally impeccable, meaning he doesn't have any problem with it. So, listen, but JaFED, you wouldn't know that because even if you did, you would just lie and you wouldn't represent Ibn Taymiyyah properly because you want to make us seem like, oh, we're just a bunch of dummies who are against reason. No, not at all. Anyway, let's go further here and listen. Inshallah.
A Hanbali faith, if the Hanbali, where he defines all of the text, means that you have to accept even textual reporting. Daniel endorses this in his book.
Okay, so now let's deal with this Fideism nonsense.
And in fact, Daniel endorses this in his if you strengthen your rational side, strengthening that will harm your religion. So this is the anti-intellectual approach of the Hanbalis. And this
we're anti-intellectualists. That's what he says. When I had another guy, an Ash'ari, on Twitter, tell someone I know, he said, you know what's the problem with you Wahhabis and you Salafis? You're too academic. You're too academic. Now this guy is coming here and saying that we're anti-intellectual.
This is just a fideistic approach to religion.
He said, we have just a fideistic approach to religion. So what is it? He said, fideism claims that truths of certain kinds can be grasped only by foregoing rational inquiry and relying solely on faith. What does that mean? You need to throw reason by the side, throw the aql by the side in order to rely solely on faith, right? So you can't use the aql to come to certain truths. It must be solely based on faith, absent of reason, and probably even contradicting reason. Right now, I'm going to go to that article. He's quoting from the Stanford Encyclopedia entry of philosophy on fideism. It says here, and I quote, okay, fideism is the name given to that school of thought which answers that faith is in some sense independent of, if not adversarial toward reason. So fideism is the belief that faith and reason conflict with each other. They're adversaries of one another, faith and reason. In contrast to the more rationalistic tradition of natural theology with its arguments for the existence of God. And then it goes and continues onward. So fideism, according to the article he cites, is the belief or the position that faith and reason, iman and the aql, or faith and reason, contradict each other, and you must throw reason by the wayside in favor of faith, right? That's what he's saying, or that's what the article is saying. Another quote from it says, let's see. No, that's enough. There's nothing really else to quote from that. Now, is that our position? Do we reject any outside knowledge? No, of course not. I already went through the whole thing with us accepting modern medicine, technology, aspects of science. We don't have a problem with that. Are we fideists? Do we believe that reason and revelation can contradict each other, and that we just take the faith? We take it on faith, even though it contradicts the aql. No, this is not our position. Let me stop sharing for a second so you can see me on the big screen. You need to see me on the big screen here. Okay. Listen, we are not fideists. Brother Daniel is not a fideist. I am not. Okay. So we will show you, and this is what we see from Brother Daniel, Muslim skeptic. Assalamu alaikum to Brother Daniel in the chat. Sorry if you guys were typing earlier. People know when I get in the zone, I just focus because I got 7 pages of notes. I'm about to drop bombs on this guy. And don't call the feds, JaFED, because I said I'm going to drop bombs. Don't call the feds. He said JaFED's take on Shaykh al-Islam was laughable even from a Western academic standpoint. And that's what I'm showing. Exactly. I'm going to show you clearly. This guy from a Western academic, I'm not even going from really even needing to go to the prime sources, although I will quote a couple things. Even from a Western academic perspective, it's laughable. Now, he mentions we don't take knowledge outside of Qur'an and Sunnah. This is a lie. What is the epistemology? And I can show you from this book, okay, which is by a somewhat, he's a scholar, okay, of the position, although we don't agree with him about, and Brother Daniel knows his recent treatise on this navigating differences thing. But Hatim al-Hajj, he has a text here, between the God of the prophets and the God of the philosophers, reflections of an ethity on the divine attributes. What is contained in the book, it's not perfect, but there's a lot of things that are correct. And he talks about Ibn Taymiyyah in there. Anyway, he mentions where Ibn Taymiyyah cites that he gets his epistemology from, or his theory of knowledge. How do we know what we know? What are the sources of knowledge where we can take things from? Well, Ibn Taymiyyah quotes the Qur'an, chapter 16, verses 77 and 78, which says this: and to Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, belongs the unseen, the ghaib, the unseen aspects of the heaven and the earth, and the command for the hour is not but as a glance of the eye or even nearer, meaning it's coming soon. Indeed, Allah is over all things competent, and Allah has extracted you from the wombs of your mothers, not knowing a thing. So when he extracted you from the womb, you didn't know anything. And then he says this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this, and he made for you what? Hearing and vision or sight and intellect, that perhaps you would be grateful. So what are our sources of knowledge? Hearing, sight, and intellect. It's threefold. And Shaykh al-Islam goes on to explain this verse. The hearing, what are the hearing? The truthful reports, the naql, right? So we take the naql, we take the truthful reports, and it can refer to other things like testimony and so on and so forth. The vision or the sight refers to empirical findings, things that you experience in your life. So we're not against science as long as it's correct and done with the correct methodology, and it doesn't conflict with what we actually know already for sure from Qur'an and Sunnah. We're not against medicine and technology, no. So first thing, hearing are the truthful reports. Second thing, the vision is the empirical findings. Third thing is what? The intellect, reason, innate reason. So we have no problem accepting knowledge outside of the Qur'an and Sunnah. This does not mean that we take so-called knowledge that is not only irrational, but also contradicts the Qur'an and Sunnah, as JaFED does. We don't do this, but we do accept knowledge outside of Qur'an and Sunnah, right? It's not restricted to it, you see? And we have many examples of this. As I said, modern medicine, technology, aspects of modern science. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, commands us to go outside, and he says, go outside and see X, Y, Z. This is part of the empirical findings, you see? So we have a threefold epistemology: the truthful reports, the naql, the empirical findings, what we can see and we can go and investigate, and the aql, reason, the intellect. You see? So his claim that we're just reading Qur'an, which, you know, mashallah, of course, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually preserve us and strengthen us into our recitation of Qur'an and read it much more. We're not devaluing that whatsoever, but we're not like some people just sitting there with Qur'an saying, oh, we don't even know how to turn our phone on. Come on, man. This is ridiculous. That's the way he's trying to make it seem like. Okay? So, now, let me start going into even more of these Western academics. And see, Muslim skeptic, there you go. Brother Daniel says, and Danny was never Muslim. He worships a pig known as the Aga Khan. And I have to agree, you know. What can we say? These guys are two sides of the same coin. And Muslim skeptic, you probably noticed some of the stuff that JaFED was saying was copy and paste from Andani. We know that. We know it was copy and paste. But now let me show you here. Watch this. Watch this. This is from John Hoover, a Western academic, not a Muslim. He has a book which is called Ibn Taymiyyah's Theory of Perpetual Optimism. Okay? Now in this text, listen to what he says. I'm going to give you a quote, because he's saying that Brother Daniel must be anti-reason. He must be anti-intellectual. He must be against the aql. He must be. This is what he's saying. And why am I focusing on Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah? He's not an outlier, but I'm focusing on him because he's an important, well-known figure in our tradition. And he's somebody who was mentioned several times by JaFED himself. So that's why we're focusing on him. So you mentioned him, so now you have to deal with what we're going to bring forward from your own Western scholars. So here is John Hoover in Ibn Taymiyyah's Theory of Perpetual Optimism. He says, and I quote, with these metaphysical oppositions in place, the Sheikh, which he's referring to Ibn Taymiyyah, sets forth simple and direct cosmological arguments for God's existence. Now remember, what was the definition of fideism? One of the definitions of fideism was contrasting someone who believed in God just based on faith and doesn't think that you can have a rational argument to prove that God exists. What is he saying here? Contradicting that. John Hoover says, with these metaphysical oppositions in place, the Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah sets forth simple and direct cosmological arguments for God's existence. He says the existence of the Creator is known necessarily by reason. From the fact of created existence, it is common sense that everything needs a cause and that all things must have an originator that is ultimately eternal and self-sufficient. This is him representing Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah's position. What? That the existence of the Creator is known necessarily by reason. Right? And then he provides a quote from Ibn Taymiyyah. The originated being itself knows through clear reason that it has an originator. Known through reason. And then going back to John Hoover says, every creature is by its very existence a sign, necessarily entailing the essence, unity, and attributes, sifat, of the Creator. And it is the way of the prophets to point to God by mentioning these signs, meaning that we can see these signs in creation, and these signs in creation direct us right to knowing that the Creator exists, which is by reason. He says the existence of the self-sufficient and the eternal existent, which is necessary in itself, wajib al-wujud, which is a term used by the philosophers, which Ibn Taymiyyah accepts, wajib al-wujud. So when you say we don't accept anything from him, even though the Qur'an and Sunnah don't come with those terms directly, wajib al-wujud, it is part of the meaning, and Shaykh al-Islam explains this with the ayah, right, that we all know, Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad. When we say that Allah is as-samad, one of the meanings of it, Shaykh al-Islam explains it, is the same as wajib al-wujud. Basically, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is independent of everything, and everything depends on him. He's the necessary being in which he is independent. He is as-samad. He doesn't depend on anything, and everything depends on him. Right? So Shaykh al-Islam gives a tafsir and he explains it. He says there's no problem with using the terminology wajib al-wujud, because that's just what the meaning is, as long as you understand the meaning properly. He says, which is necessary in itself, is known by the necessity of reason, and from the need of every originated event for an originator, as well as from the need of something possible, mumkin, for something else to give it existence. So from something coming into existence or new events occurring, a baby being born, and Shaykh al-Islam gives this example, just from a baby being born is a rational proof of God existing. And he goes on to explain this in detail and prove it. And this is John Hoover, your Western academic. Well, he's not from Harvard, I don't think, or wherever he's from. But he's good enough, right, JaFED? He's probably good enough for you. Further on, it's not done. We have just barely cracked the nut. It's still going, baby. What's he say? Ibn Taymiyyah contrasts his straightforward proofs for God's existence from aql with the kalam method of rational inference. So that doesn't mean that he accepts any kind of argument people give. No, he's going to go through it and say, okay, we accept this and we don't accept that. And I can show you, right? I can show you from this text as well, Ibn Taymiyyah on the oneness of God. I can show you from this text as well, which I'm going to do in just a second, that Ibn Taymiyyah accepted some arguments from the Mutakallimin. He did, as long as they did not conflict with the Qur'an wa Sunnah. Okay? So, but in some instances he did criticize them because they brought up things that did go against the text. Now, he goes on further to say, Ibn Taymiyyah contrasts his straightforward proofs for God existence from aql, with the kalam method of rational inference, which proves the existence of the creator by indirect cosmological arguments, appealing to the origination of accidents and the composition of bodies from atoms, because they had this whole theory about bodies and accidents and atoms. And Shaykh al-Islam said, look, you guys are, this is an indirect method. Here, I got a straightforward cosmological argument, boom, that proves a necessary, eternal, self-sufficient creator. He criticizes, so he says, Ibn Taymiyyah criticizes especially the Mu'tazilis and some Ash'aris and even some Hanbali theologians, right, for making this idea a human obligation, that you must do this. So the caveat is, we don't believe that the woman who is someone living in a far village, right, that is just a farmer or just living her life taking care of her family, right, a woman that is in the household taking care of the family, or a man who's just a farmer out in the field in the middle of Afghanistan or some other place. We don't believe it's an obligation for them to go through a process of trying to demonstrate or prove that God exists to some other person. No, that's not an obligation. But do we believe that they can do it? Yes, we do. And we believe why that's not an obligation, because everyone is born on the fitrah. Everyone already has the innate disposition to know and believe that God exists. And we have scientific studies to back this up, right? So it's not required, but he says sometimes it is required in the case that the fitrah becomes clouded. When it becomes clouded, like for people like JaFED, then you have to sometimes use rational arguments, because that's the only thing that they even want to listen to, you see? Now he goes on further to say, he argues that this method, whose origins he traces to, anyway, he continues on and on and on here further. He goes, okay. He observes furthermore that not even the philosophers make their speculative methods an obligation, since they do not regard their special knowledge to be available to the general populace. So he claimed that the philosophers made it obligatory on everyone. And he says that Shaykh al-Islam claims that that's not true, because even the philosophers know that they don't regard their special knowledge to be available to the general public. Then he says, rather, according to Ibn Taymiyyah, God's origination of the human being after it was non-existent is known directly by all through reason, apart from prophetic revelation, even though the prophets and the Qur'an also use this form of proof. So are we solely dependent on the text? Do we not rely or have any, relationship with the aql, with reason? Ibn Taymiyyah says God's origination of a human being after he was non-existent is known directly by everyone through reason, apart from the prophetic relation, even though the prophets and the Qur'an also use this form of proof. Why? Because Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah's position was what? Not that reason is this thing that is contrary to revelation. No, he said that and in fact, he wrote an entire text on the subject, that reason and revelation can never contradict. It's impossible for them to go against each other. They go hand in hand. But you can have people like JaFED claiming these fake aqli or fake rational principles, which do go against Qur'an and Sunnah, and Ibn Taymiyyah goes through them in a rational basis, refutes them both textually and from an aqli perspective, right? Now, then he goes on further to say, this is still John Hoover here, whatever contradicts the Qur'an and the Sunnah, right? Whatever contradicts the Qur'an and the Sunnah lies outside the pale of rationality, clearly, right? If it contradicts Qur'an and Sunnah, then it's irrational, because the Qur'an and Sunnah are rational. So anything that is contradictory to them cannot be rational. Anything that's in line with them is rational. They go hand in hand. Reason and revelation go hand in hand. Then he says, thus, the proofs of reason, rightly exercised, lead to the same end as do the proofs of tradition, both the proofs of reason and the proofs of tradition lead to the same place. Why? He says, and they derive from the same source. They come from the same source. This is John Hoover quoting or referencing Ibn Taymiyyah. Now he says, a passage from Ibn Taymiyyah's letter illustrates how revelation and reason may be conceived as complementary paths to the same truth. They complement one another and they go to the same truth. Why? Because they have the same source. You see? Now here's a quote from one of Ibn Taymiyyah's letters. He says, the Salaf and their followers knew that both revelational and rational proofs were true, and that they entailed one another. The rational proofs entail the proofs of revelation, and vice versa. Whoever gave rational and certain proofs, right? Whoever gave rational and certain proofs, the complete inquiry due them knew that they agreed with what the messengers informed about and what they proved to them, the necessity of believing the messengers in what they informed about. So anybody who knew the rational proofs knows, right, that they entail what the messengers bring, and vice versa. He says, whoever gave revelational proofs, the understanding due them knew, so somebody who knew the proofs of revelation knew that God guided his servants in his book to certain rational proofs by which are known the existence of the Creator. So he's saying the proofs from reason entail the proofs of the revelation, and the proofs in the revelation entail the proofs of reason because they have the rational proofs built within them as well, by which are known the existence of the Creator. What? Guided his servants in his book to certain rational proofs by which are known the existence of the Creator. So Shaykh al-Islam says there are rational proofs for the existence of the Creator within the text itself as well. The subsistence of his attributes of perfection, to know that he has attributes of perfection, his perfect knowledge, his perfect wisdom, his perfect power, etc. And his exoneration from any imperfections. Everybody would know rationally that God cannot have imperfections. And that's one of our problems with the Christians, because they attribute imperfections to God. And from anything being like him, laysa kamithlihi shay. There's nothing like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the attributes of perfection, and which prove his uniqueness, the uniqueness of his lordship, the uniqueness of his divinity, his power, his knowledge, his wisdom, his mercy, the truthfulness of his messengers, the obligation to obey them, the obligation to obey the messengers in what they obligate and command, and believing them in what they teach and inform about. Shaykh al-Islam says all of this is both aqli and naqli, both rational and revelational. That was a quote from Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, quoted by a quoted by a Western academic like John Hoover, and comes to the same conclusion. It's as clear as day he's not against reason, and he says they go hand in hand. Then after this text, which I just read, listen to what John Hoover's conclusion is. According to this text, revelation reiterates the correct rational proofs pertinent to religion, right? So reason reiterates the correct rational proofs. It comes with what you already should know from reason. As Ibn Taymiyyah explains elsewhere, revelation contains both information and rational proofs. The rational proofs are both revelational by virtue of being brought by God and his messengers, and rational, aqli, since they are judged true by reason. The Sheikh also notes that the Kalam theologians, as well as philosophers, by whom he usually means Aristotelian Neoplatonists like Al-Farabi and Ibn Sina, they commit an error when they confine revelation to the domain of information. So Shaykh al-Islam is going in from even further. He's not only accepting the aql, independent of the text, he's saying the problem that the Kalam theologians and the philosophers, the mutafalsifa, what they had a problem with was they confined revelation only to the information. But he says, no, you have aqli proofs also built within that. Then further he says, to put the matter in another way, revelation embodies true rationality. So when he so listen to this. This is what after this Western academic is saying about, according to Ibn Taymiyyah's position. What's his position? Revelation embodies true rationality. And he's saying we're anti-rationalists. What a joke. You're a complete joke. And that's why that beautiful introduction I gave from Brother Daniel, which I'm going to play again at the end. The whole highlight of this video is none of you Muslims out there should take this Fed and these other fake academics, these secularists. Yeah, I said it. They're secularists because they're secularists, but all they're known for is sucking down their Starbucks latte at Starbucks with their bunch of friends sitting around. Yeah, that's what they do. They know the Starbucks menu and the ingredients of their favorite latte better than they know what Shaykh al-Islam is saying. And that's why they misrepresent and slander him. And even their own Western academics are refuting them. And don't worry, I'm just getting started. I'm just giving you one so far. We're just getting started, baby. Further on, he says, John Hoover, once one has access to revelation, one identifies it immediately as identical to whatever truth one knew previously through reason. So you already knew it through reason. And then when you read the revelation, you say, wow, this is what I already know. In this vein, Ibn Taymiyyah observes that the truthfulness of the prophets can be known only through reason. What? Listen again. In this vein, Ibn Taymiyyah observes that the truthfulness of the prophets can be known only through reason. Conversely, the revelation immediately exposes irrational ideas for what they are. So this irrational garbage that JaFED is bringing us, the revelation also exposes it as irrational. Not only is it against the text, it's also irrational. Then he goes on to conclude. Ibn Taymiyyah sets limits to what reason can know in theology and ethics. We agree with that. Reason can't know everything, and that's why we need the revelation for some things which reason can't know from reason alone. Revelation is required to know, and then he gives examples. The details of what the prophets informed concerning theological matters. So the details of fiqh. We can't know how many times a day to pray just merely from the aql. This is what Ibn Taymiyyah is saying. The existence of the angels, the existence of the throne, the existence of paradise and the hellfire, and the details of what is commanded and prohibited. We can know some of those things, but we can't know all of the details. And that's why we need the reason, the revelation, because we can't know all of the details from reason alone. He says, however, rational proofs, the best of which are found in the Qur'an, which nobody would deny, establish God's existence, God's attributes, and the obligation to believe and obey what God brings through his messengers. This is what he's saying Ibn Taymiyyah's position is. You see, that's John Hoover for you. That's just one person there, John Hoover for you, Western academic telling you. Now, let me give you another academic, Dr. Carl Sharif Al-Tubgi. And sorry if I'm not pronouncing his last name properly. I don't see it. Or I haven't heard it pronounced very much. He wrote a book which is called Ibn Taymiyyah on Reason and Revelation. What does he say in that book? Let's take a look. What does he say? What it was Ibn Taymiyyah against the aql? Was he anti-rationalist? Did he say that the reason and revelation conflict and that revelation is over reason and all this? What did he say? He said, and I quote, this is Dr. Carl Sharif, who it's published by Brill. He's a Western academic. Quote, Ibn Taymiyyah's insistence that the relevant distinction to be made is between knowledge and conjecture. So the problem is not between reason and revelation. It's from the qat'i and the dhanni, or from what is conclusive and what is speculative, rather than between reason as a category and revelation as a category. has immediate implications for the epistemological status, because he talked about knowledge before, as well as the religious moral evaluation of various arguments and proofs. In argument 1579, this is what Carl Sharif is citing, Ibn Taymiyyah elaborates a fundamental distinction through which he seeks to shift the entire frame of reference in the debate concerning reason and revelation. He proposes that the real issue is not a question of scriptural versus rational proofs and methods, as scholars had framed the debate up until his time. So he says that Ibn Taymiyyah says the real issue is not a question of scriptural versus rational. The real issue is definitive versus inconclusive or conjectural. So if you have a qat'i, aqli proof, Ibn Taymiyyah's position is it can never contradict a qat'i or a conclusive naqli proof. They can never conflict. So both the definitive proofs of reason and revelation will always agree and complement one another. But you could have, theoretically, you could have a dhanni or a conjectural aqli proof, which is not really a proof, it's conjectural, that conflicts with revelation and vice versa. So this is a second academic who did an entire PhD thesis on this subject, published by Brill, on Ibn Taymiyyah's book. You don't even know Ibn Taymiyyah wrote an entire book saying that reason and revelation can never conflict with each other. Right? And you're complaining and you're saying he was an anti-rationalist. Right? It's a complete joke. Okay, so that was Dr. Carl Sharif. So now we've given you two. Now we'll go to Hatem al-Hajj. What does Hatem al-Hajj say? From his book, which I referenced before, he says, Ibn Taymiyyah, radiyallahu an, did not attempt to belittle the office of reason or deny its importance in grounding our faith in the revelation. But now watch, he's going to say the same thing that Dr. Carl just said, Western academic. He argued that reason is not one undifferentiated category of conclusive, qat'i, rational output. He argued that most rational propositions that these mutakallimin bring, especially, are speculative or dhanni, and they naturally should not be given precedence over the conclusive assertions of the revelation. The same applies to revelation, though. So it would be natural that we give precedence to what is conclusive, regardless of whether it is rational or scriptural. So it doesn't matter if it's rational, aqli, or naqli. It's what is conclusive. That is what is given precedence over. When they are both dhanni, we look for more probative proofs. We look to something else. There is thus no simple binary of reason versus revelation. Ibn Taymiyyah rejects that idea. If it is said that Ar-Razi was only talking about conclusive indicants of reason, Ibn Taymiyyah denied that they ever conflicted with the obvious implications of the revelation. So whatever actually is a true, definitive aqli proof will never contradict the revelation. He argued that most of what Ar-Razi seems to consider conclusive is not in fact so. He maintained that the established findings of sense perception, so you said, oh, we only just get it from the text. No, we also accept sense perception and a priori reason or knowledge can never be ignored in favor of revelation. But they also never needed to be ignored because the revelation never contradicted them. Let me read that again. He, speaking about Ibn Taymiyyah, maintained that the established findings of sense perception and a priori reason can never be ignored in favor of revelation. Why? Because they can never contradict. But they also never needed to be ignored. Why? Because the revelation never contradicted them. A conflict between the conclusive deliverances of these three sources of knowledge is simply impossible. So reason, revelation, and what is known through sense perception can never conflict. It's impossible for those three elements which are known conclusively to ever conflict, according to Ibn Taymiyyah. That's a third scholar I'm giving you. Now let's go further, because you're saying that Ibn Taymiyyah and these Athari's and Daniel is a fideist. Hatem al-Hajj saying the same thing that the other scholars mentioned earlier about Ibn Taymiyyah's proofs for God's existence. Ibn Taymiyyah, radiyallahu an, provides a simpler explanation of the cosmological argument that rests on three pillars: the existence of extant beings that are obviously temporal, like a baby coming into existence, like ourselves, for example, and that are incapable of creation themselves. They didn't create themselves. This points to a creator. The creator must be an uncaused cause, eternal, and self-sufficient. Otherwise, we fall into an infinite regress. So he used the infinite regress argument in that respect. Also, the possible contingent creations, mumkin, need a preponderator who is necessary, wajib al-wujud, to come to existence. And since the mumkin is existent, the necessary is a priori existent. So if you have something contingent, that entails something that's necessary, right? Again, third scholar proving you wrong, JaFED. You don't know the basics of our tradition, my friend. How are you going to argue against something you don't know? And I'm surprised because I corrected Khalil, your other buddy from Starbucks. I corrected him on all these points, and you're regurgitating the same errors. Why? Only thing I can think of is either you didn't see that or you're a liar. You're a shaitan. Now, here's a direct quote from this text, from the text of Ibn Taymiyyah, which was translated by the same person who translated this text. Okay? It says here, this is Ibn Taymiyyah speaking. And among the ways of explaining the vastness of arguments for the maker's existence is to say, he said, and among the vastness, meaning the amount of arguments for the maker or the creator's existence are so many. Now he gives you an example. The classification of existence into two categories, the necessary and the contingent, and the subsequent inference of the necessary existent from the contingent existences, which we just mentioned, which is exactly what Sheikh Hatem al-Hajj said, right? And the subsequent inference from the necessary existent from the contingent. This is merely one method of demonstration from a vast genre of arguments that allows for other more evident methods of demonstration, such as the classification of existence into the originated and the eternal, and subsequently inferring the eternal existent from the originated existence. That's Ibn Taymiyyah speaking right there. Okay? So, are we fideists? No. Do we think reason and revelation conflict? No. What do we take? Reason over revelation? No, it's a false dichotomy. Reason and revelation can never conflict. And Ibn Taymiyyah wrote an entire text on this. So JaFED, you are so ignorant or such a downright dirty liar that either way, nobody should ever take you seriously. And these are from, I gave you 3 academics, and now I just gave you direct source material from Ibn Taymiyyah himself, right? Now, let me go further for you. I'm going to go back here now. I'm going to go back here now because I like taking this guy to task because he's such a shaitan lying against the shuyukh of this ummah. Okay. So now let me go here further. I'm going to go back to playing his video where he makes another blunder. And we're going to show this is really going to be key. So if you know people that tuned out, make sure you refer them back to this part in the video here, because we're going to expose this. Because he was trying to get on Daniel as being conspiratorial about the moon landing or flat earth and all this kind of stuff. Watch. We're going to show you he lied on Ibn Taymiyyah and the Ethnies. And then I'm going to show you he actually cites a conspiracy theorist and a complete nut job to prove a point which we don't even believe. And I'll show you his motive to show you how academia is not what you think. Okay? So here, let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Go back to Javed's foolishness here. JaFED, I should say. Here we go.
And in fact, Daniel endorses this in his book where he defines what it means to be a Muslim skeptic. It's about dogmatic textual reports that are absurd. And the problem with that is that it means that you have to accept even textual reports that are absurd. Imam Ahmad said, even if the ears are repelled by this textual report, if you're disgusted by it, you must still believe in it. And this, of course, is not how the Islamic rationalists viewed it. If they saw an absurd hadith, they would just say, it's not possible that the messenger of God could say something like that. Now, the Hanbalis, because of this, believed in an anthropomorphic God because they were accepting all these random.
So he says, look, because we're anti-rationalists and we just have to take the text, whatever it says, without any consideration of definitive aqli proofs, then we believe in all these ridiculous hadiths and we believe in an anthropomorphic God. And this is the exact same thing Andani did, bringing up these pictures, making the audience think that we believe that. We don't. Watch, you see.
Random hadith reports. Here's Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who affirmed that God has a face, eyes, curly hair, mouth, voice, 5 fingers, and even shockingly loins.
Okay, so this quote here, you see here, is from W. Williams, Aspects of the Creed of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, radiyallahu an. I'm going to show you who Wesley Williams is. I'm going to show you who Wesley Williams is in a second. But hold on a second. He's claiming that we believe in all of these things without any context of explaining anything about our position, and then he's trying to make it seem like we believe that this is God. Astaghfirullah. We don't believe that it's God. Laysa kamithlihi shay. At all. And people can see my other videos when I explain Yad Allah and then what it means and how we understand it and all these kind of things. But we don't believe what this guy thinks we believe. We don't believe in an anthropomorphic God. Astaghfirullah. We don't believe that God is a man or a boy.
Even accepted this report about God appearing in the shape of a young boy with
here you go. Watch
hair.
this.
And this report was accepted by Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and even Ibn Taymiyyah. Here's
citations provided in Williams. See, everything's Williams.
Receipts for that. Now, they also by Imam Ahmad.
Now I'm going to show you how his representation of our position on this hadith is a complete lie and distortion, right? Trying to make it seem like it's something like to do with Christianity. But let me show you, who is this person? Who is this Wesley Williams quoting, saying that we believe in an anthropomorphic God? Who is this academic? Who is this Wesley Williams? Wesley Williams, guys, you want to see who he is? I'm going to show you who he is. Let's see who Wesley Williams is. Wesley Williams also goes under another name. Does JaFED know this? Wesley Williams also goes under another name. This right here, folks, I present before you, this gentleman here with that face. That is Wesley Williams. He also goes by the name of Wesley Muhammad, and he is a member of the organization of the NOI, Nation of Islam, although we say he is a part of the Nation of Kufr, because he is not a Muslim. He is a kafir. He is a filthy mushrik, one of the worst of them all. And I'm going to show you what he believes, because he's trying to get on Daniel. Oh, Daniel's quoting these people who are supposedly conspiracy theorists and Islamophobes. Watch and you see who he's quoting here. Wesley Williams is also known as Wesley Muhammad. We'll see, what does Wesley Muhammad believe, and I'll show you how he has motivation to misrepresent the position and the aqidah of Imam Ahmad radiyallahu an. Why? Because what does the Nation of Islam believe? We'll show you. Let's see what this beautiful gentleman believes about the white race. What does he believe about white people? Where did white people come from? You want to talk about the moon landing and evolution and whatever else. What does this person who you're quoting to put forward one of your positions, which, by the way, had nothing to do with the actual topic of the debate? And that's why Daniel didn't respond to half of this garbage, because he didn't follow your red herring, which was good on him. What does this guy actually believe? Let's listen.
I am, and we are asking you to be patient with this discussion. this, for some of you, won't be easy.
You see that? You see it says Dr. Wesley Muhammad. He's also known as Dr. Wesley Williams. But it's the same guy. Trust me, look it up, guys. Look it up. Google it. You'll see it there. We got you guys red-handed busted. You think Daniel, oh, he quoted someone. You're quoting this shaitan, Dr. Wesley Williams. He's Dr. Wesley Muhammad, one of the biggest conspiracy theorists. Listen to what he believes about where the white race come from. Look.
We're going to have to take our time with this discussion because, again, this is the most mocked aspect of the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I personally have every intent on ending that tonight.
He says, why? We need to talk. And the video, sorry it being blurry, it's not on my part. He must have had connection problems at the time of this video. But he says, I want to talk to you about one of the most mocked doctrines and positions of the great Elijah Muhammad. Listen.
I have every intention, Sister Janita, of ending tonight.
He has every intention of ending that mockery against this great Elijah Muhammad's position.
So we're going to walk throughout and saying to us that what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us about Yaqub and the making of white people.
We're going to talk to you about what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke and taught about Yaqub and the making of white people. Okay, we can go on further. We could listen to him ramble, but he's already telling you it's coming from Elijah Muhammad. So let's go to his fake prophet Elijah Muhammad. Let's take a look and see what he had to say. Let me share my screen and I'll show you. This is the guy that JaFED is citing, right? To try to say that we believe in an anthropomorphic God. And I'll explain to you why they say that as well. Here we go. This is Elijah Muhammad here.
According to what Master Farad Muhammad taught me on the race question, the origin of the races. In the beginning, according to what Master Farad Muhammad taught me on the race question, the origin of the races. In the beginning of the races, they numbered around 4. And from these 4 races of people, they has produced many different types of people. But they are not, say, independent in their beginning. They came from one. We say today we have lots of various colored people all over the earth. From, we say, from brown to white. We are not all the same color due to intermixing with such colors as black, brown, yellow, and red and white. This has produced many other various colors. And the origin of it, according to the teachings of Master Farad Muhammad, to me, was from a scientist, a God. We see him. We see him as a God.
Did you hear that? He said the origin of the white race and all the other white races besides the blacks came from someone named Yaqub, who we believe is a God. We see him as a God. Listen to that again.
According to the teachings of Master Farad Muhammad, to me, was from a scientist, a God. We see him. We see him as a God.
We see him as a God. Now, how is that related to the Ahmed ibn Hanbal question? We'll see in just a second. I'll explain it.
Back 6,000 years ago, started we say a scientific, or I should say, a master grafting work on the human being to produce a new civilization, a new race of people from the original race of people, or aboriginal people. This man, Yaqub, who discovered in the joint of the black man that he had 2 people in him, and that he had learned through study and experimenting on germs that this second germ could produce a powerful people that would be able to rule that which they came from for around 6,000 years until the father, the aboriginal, produces one superior to his man. And that was this, that he taken through experimental work on the germ of man, a people of what we call today a white race. But before he produced it, that white race, he produced it a brown race. He produced it a yellow race, and so on.
Do you hear all this nonsense that the guy is saying? Where did the white race and all of these races come from? They came from a scientist named Yaqub about 6,000 years ago or so, who created, doing experiments from the germs of black people, he created these different races. So Yaqub, a black man who they consider God, created the white race. And that's why they think we're white devils, is what they believe. And this is who JaFED is citing in his debate with Daniel, and the same person that Khalil and Danny cited in his debate with me. Now, how is this relevant? Why? What do NOI believe, and why is this man saying, why is Elijah Muhammad the head of the NOI, Nation of Kufr? Why is he claiming, or why is he calling Yaqub a god? Why? Because their position is that the black man is God. In fact, if you look at Wesley Muhammad in that video, I don't know if you guys caught it. I don't know if you guys actually caught that video. Let me pull it back up for you, because I don't know if you clearly saw it. One second here. Let me see. I can go to my library here. Okay. Right. Here it is. Did you guys catch what this guy has on his shirt? Did you see that? It's kind of fuzzy. It's not that clear. Okay, let me try to do this for you guys. I don't know if you caught it, but what he actually has on his shirt while he's doing the interview, okay, you will see it here.
And today's conversation isn't going to be an exception to that. It's going to highlight that point, because
on his shirt right here it says Black God.
Us through
Black God.
The evidence that confirms that the seemingly
Black God. You see it right there. There it is. Right there. Black God written there. Why? So now how does this relate? He is quoting, JaFED is quoting a man, Wesley Williams, right? AKA Wesley Muhammad, who is part of a cult, who is faking to be Muslims, Nation of Islam, just like JaFED is. So maybe they're friends. That's why I don't know. And claiming that Ahmed ibn Hanbal and the Atheris, the Islamic traditionalists, actually believed in that God was a man. They believed in an anthropomorphic God. Now, what would, hold on a second. What would Wesley Muhammad's motivation for that be? Why? Because he believes that the black man is God. Why do you think it says Black God? You see that? The black man is God, so he literally believes that God is a man, so he's trying to manipulate the tradition, the Islamic tradition, and say that Ahmed ibn Hanbal also believed that God was a man and gave him all these anthropomorphic qualities. That's what he's doing. So we're exposing, unlike these random conspiracy theories that JaFED is trying to come up with, that he's quoting from Wesley Muhammad. We know what Wesley Muhammad's position was, and he clearly had all these positions, right? That, oh, Yaqub was a black God who created the white man. He believes that God is the black man, so he's trying to manipulate the Islamic tradition to say that we believe that God is a man. That's what he's doing. And that's who you're citing as proof against what we actually believe. That's what you call academic. That's the best that Harvard can produce between Tweedledee and Tweedledum, Khalil and Danny, and JaFED. Two soy boy, secularists, fake scholars sipping their lattes over at Starbucks. That's who they are. And you want to get on Daniel for who he's quoting? Come on, man. Get the hell out of here with this garbage. Okay? So now let's deal with the actual hadith that he's quoting. Let's go back to the video here and deal with the hadith he's quoting, which I had to bust down and Danny the same thing, but he's repeating the same lies as his friend. So we have to refute this. See this here, Ahmed ibn Hanbal's anthropomorphic God, right? Wesley Williams, aspects of the creed of Imam Ahmed.
Mouth, voice in the shape of a young boy with beautiful curly hair. And this report was accepted by Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal and even Ibn Taymiyyah.
So Ibn Taymiyyah and Imam Ahmed supposedly accepted a hadith that says, I saw my Lord in the most beautiful form, like a youth with abundant hair. Okay, so what actually is our position? What actually is our position? Let me break this down for you guys. Okay. Yeah, he's Brother Daniel said JaFED believes Nation of Islam are Muslims. Exactly. That's why he's quoting from these people. They're no different. It's the same stuff. Okay. So here we go. Ibn Taymiyyah, this is a quote from Ibn Taymiyyah about this hadith. All of them, meaning these narrations that mention this, contain what indicates that this was in a dream that the Prophet ﷺ saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that it was took place in Medina, except for the narration. Sorry, not nation. I'm thinking of Nation of Islam. Astaghfirullah. Narration of Ikramah on the authority of Ibn Abbas. May Allah be pleased with them. Ahmed ibn Hanbal made the two narrations as one, and so the scholars said that it was a dream. So the claim is that this was not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in reality, that we actually believe that Allah, astaghfirullah, is actually a boy with curly hair. We do not believe that. But this guy wants to make it seem that way because he believes God is a black man. So he's trying to slander Imam Ahmed. No, Ibn Taymiyyah said that Imam Ahmed understood it as a dream, and that the scholars that accepted it as authentic said that it was the Prophet saw it in a dream, saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a dream. Then what does he say about this hadith and any dream in general? He says, Ibn Taymiyyah, and I quote, "We do not believe that what a person imagines in his sleep or wakefulness is from images, that Allah in his essence is like that in the dream. He himself is not like that." So he says, even if this hadith is authentic, it was in a dream. And if the Prophet ﷺ saw this image, that image is not actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not like that image. We do not believe he's actually a man or resembles anything like that. Rather, it is the same for the essence of the jinn and the angels, which man cannot envision and imagine it as it is in reality. Rather, it is different from what he imagines and forms in his sleep and wakefulness. So he says it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is nothing like what was seen in that dream. And then he says, not only that, he says it is haram. It is not permissible for anyone to believe that Allah himself is like what you have seen in your dream, including the one that the Prophet ﷺ had, if you think that this hadith is authentic. So the scholars that took this hadith to be authentic, they said it was in the form of a dream, and they said that it is haram to believe that what is seen in that dream is actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he resembles anything like that. No, laysa kamithlihi shay. Now, is it only the Atheists that believe this? Here's a quote from Imam as-Suyuti, right? Who was an Ash'ari, devout Ash'ari. What does he say? What does he say about this hadith? He said, if this narration is carried out as a dream, then there is no issue in that. Why? Because he's, of course, he has the same position as what Ibn Taymiyyah says, that if it's just a dream, of course, astaghfirullah, we don't believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually resembles that in any way. No way. So on the issue, there's a division, there's ikhtilaf on this hadith. Is it authentic or is it not? Of the scholars that said it was authentic, they said it was in the form of a dream, and it's haram to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks or resembles anything like what is in the dream. Okay, so therefore, you're completely lying and misrepresenting their position. Secondly, there are scholars in the tradition that rejected the hadith outright because they said that the chain, there were problems in the chain. For example, Sheikh al-Albani said that it was not established back to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, that it was actually a hadith by someone other than the Prophet. It doesn't actually go all the way back to him, right? So that was Sheikh al-Albani's position, that it was not authentically going back to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Ibn al-Jawzi said, this hadith cannot be proven, and all its narrations are from, and he starts naming the different people in the chain. Then he goes on to say, that this narrator, Hamad ibn Salma, he says, this individual used to insert these ahadith into his books, meaning that were not actually from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay? This is from Ibn al-Jawzi. Again, Ash-Shawkani said that this hadith, what? It is fabricated hadith, and its chain of narrators includes a fabricator, a liar, and an unknown reporter. So he criticized the chain. Okay? So whatever, some Athadis accepted it, or some scholars accepted it, even As-Suyuti and Ash'ari said there's no problem with it necessarily. But of those that said it was authentic, they said it was a dream, and it's haram to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resembles anything like what is in the dream. So he's not a man, not a boy, astaghfirullah. He's not a black god like what this clown Wesley Muhammad is asserting. On the other hand, you had scholars that critiqued the chain of narration and said that it was not authentic, that it could be fabricated or weak or doesn't go back to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And from them, Shawkani, Ibn al-Jawzi, Sheikh al-Albani, etc. Now, so I hope that dispels that claim. Now let's go back to the video and let's keep busting JaFED down, because we got to prove him wrong on another one of his lies. Let's prove him wrong on another one of his lies here. I know we're wearing him out with this one. It must be hurting him.
The receipts for that. Now, they also believe that the earth was flat.
Here's what he says. Talk about conspiracy theories and flat earth. Listen.
And this report was accepted by Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and even Ibn Taymiyyah. Here's the receipts for that. Now, they also believe that the earth was flat, and this is their view of the flat earth theory, and they believe that God sat above the throne and put his 2 feet on the footstool. Now, from a meta-ethical...
Okay, so now he says that the Atharis, we also believe that the earth was flat. We believed, and he's mentioning Imam Ahmad and Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. So let's see what Ibn Taymiyyah said about this. Did Ibn Taymiyyah believe that the earth was flat? Just watch, look at this knucklehead, man. Unbelievable. The lies and distortions. This is from an article posted by Sapiens Institute. Okay, which you see here, which says, does the Qur'an say the earth is flat? Islamic scholarship and the multiplicity of readings approach. Okay, and this is written by Brother Hamza. Sources. Okay. Anyway, so down here, he actually quotes Ibn Taymiyyah. He says, interestingly, 14th century, 8th century after Hijrah, scholar Ibn Taymiyyah cites an earlier authority, right? Abul Hussein ibn Munada, as referring to the earth as a ball. Here's the quote from Ibn Taymiyyah. there is consensus, and I know this is a big problem for you. I know the radar is going off, JaFED, because I know you hate the concept of ijma, right? But he says there is consensus. This is a quote from Ibn Taymiyyah. There is consensus, there is ijma, and whether you agree with this or not is not the point. Among the scholars, that the earth, with all its movements on the land and sea, is like a ball. Ibn Munada's view is supported by Ibn Hazm, who also stated that there is a consensus that the earth is spherical. So Ibn Taymiyyah quotes Ibn Munada, which is also supported by Ibn Hazm, says the same thing, that there is ijma, there is consensus that the earth is like a ball, that it's not flat. So there you go again. You're busted down, caught lying, claiming that we believe that, or that Ibn Taymiyyah and everyone in our tradition said that the earth was flat. Lied again, right? Very clear that you got caught lying again. Okay, so now, here we go. Let me go back to my notes here. Caught lying about the earth being flat and us being conspiracy theorists about the flat earth and all this kind of stuff. Now we're going to go on to his other part of the video. Let me share the screen. We're almost done with this guy, but we gotta knock him down, get him from all angles here. Okay, let's see. Share my screen. Go back to JaFED's foolishness. Okay, hold on. Okay, here we go.
Above the throne, foot is two, that you need to use moral reason, the footstool. Now, from a meta-ethical standpoint,
now he talks about meta-ethics. So he tries to critique our position on meta-ethics. So watch this. We're going to show he has no idea about our position on meta-ethics.
We also believe that you need to use moral reason. Not only science informs your worldview, but moral reasoning should as well. And that's why Islamic rationalists or modernists are ethical objectivists and moral universalists. Using human reason, human beings can work out at least some shared moral truths. We embrace natural universalism. We also believe that you need to use moral reason. Not only science informs your worldview, but moral reasoning should as well. And that's why Islamic rationalists or modernists are ethical objectivists and moral universalists. Using human reason, human beings can work out at least some shared moral truths. We embrace natural law and believe that the moral law is inscribed in our hearts, discoverable by human reason and our innate moral intuitions, which are God-given gifts. So we believe that you're supposed to read the Quran ethically on the assumption that it is ethical and has something ethical to say. Meanwhile, Sunni traditionalists are ethical subjectivists. They are God-given.
So he's claiming that the Islamic rationalists and JaFED and his clan are ethical objectivists. They believe that morality is objective. It's not completely subjective, and that it's known. It can be known apart from revelation. It can be known through human reason or our innate moral intuitions from the fitrah. This is what he's claiming. And now he claims that we don't believe that Daniel doesn't believe that.
Meanwhile, Sunni traditionalists are ethical subjectivists. They believe good and evil are based on God's arbitrary will. Because he says we are ethical subjectivists. We believe good and evil are based on God's arbitrary will. Morality is unknowable except through divine revelation. He says that we believe that our morality is unknowable except through divine revelation. Reasoning has virtually no role to play. God could have told you to smash infant skulls into rocks, and that's in the Bible, and that would make it right. See that? Ethical reasoning has no role to play, can only be just read the text, and that's the only thing. You can't know it before that. And God could have said to smash infant skulls, astaghfirullah, into rocks, and that be the right thing to do. That's what he says is the lazim or the entailment of our position. This is a strict divine command theory, and of course this is why they side with slavery and enslavement and sex slavery, because they think that this is prescribed in their revelation. So he says, and this is why we believe in sex slavery and all this other stuff, is because of our ethical subjectivism. Whatever God says, he could will the craziest thing you could imagine, torturing babies for fun or something like that. He could will that as the greatest moral thing to do, and you guys would believe in it. That's what he's trying to make it seem like. So the idea is very simple. The Quran.
Okay, so let's deal with this claim. Do we believe that God's morality, or Allah subhanahu, the morality is, or good and evil, is completely based on God's arbitrary will? Now, I will throw JaFED a bone here. You could try to make this argument for the Ash'aris, but you could not make this argument for the Atheris. Why? Because we don't believe that, and I'm going to show you that Ibn Taymiyyah critiques this view. And I'm going to show you from your own Western scholars critiquing this, showing that Ibn Taymiyyah and the Atheris don't believe this. Let's take a look. So he says, look, morality is unknowable except through divine revelation. Now, I'm also going to defend the Ash'aris and Maturidis here for a second, because we got to be just. We got to be just about this. Okay. Here we go. This is from a text. Can you guys see this? Let me stop sharing my screen here for a second, because he said the position of the traditionalists is that morality is unknowable except through divine revelation. So this is a text here which is called The Differences Between the Ash'aris and the Maturidis, right? And there's a commentary on it written by Saeed Foda, who's one of the foremost authorities of the Ash'aris today. So in here, this is a commentary on the text, right? And he's talking about the differences between the Ash'aris and the Maturidis. He says, and I quote, "There is no disagreement between the scholars of the various Islamic sects that the good and evil expressed in the two former meanings are rational, i.e., they can be comprehended by the rational faculty and are not conditional upon the existence of the sacred law. The disagreement lies in the third meaning of good and evil." Okay, and let me read for you what the third meaning is. Okay, let's see. The third meaning given for good and evil is the resultant rewards and punishments that are given for a particular thing. In other words, an action is called good if it results in reward for the one who does it and punishment for the one who leaves it. An action is called evil if it results in a punishment for the one who does it and reward for the one who leaves it and abstains from it. So he says there's ikhtilaf amongst the Ash'aris and Maturidis whether or not this can be known through reason or revelation. But if you understand good and evil differently, then it can be. He says the disagreement lies in this third meaning. Some have said that it is possible for the rational faculty to perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rulings for a particular human action, and it is possible for the rational faculty to affirm a resultant reward or punishment for actions without recourse to the sacred law or the sending of prophets. Some say that this is not possible, and that such judgments cannot be made until after the appearance of the sacred law, and taking the ruling from the law revealed by Allah. And with Allah, there is no rational connection between an action and a reward or punishment. And some have restricted rational knowledge to some rulings only and did not generalize. So even amongst the Ash'aris and Maturidis, this is a complicated matter that requires some tafsir. Broadly speaking, the Ash'aris do not believe in that because they are strict subjectivists, and this is one of my criticisms of their position, that they believe that morality is solely based on God's arbitrary will. He could will anything to be the good or moral thing. The Maturidis don't believe that because they believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the attribute called hikmah. Allah has wisdom, right? And they believe also that we can know these rational truths prior to revelation and that we are to be held accountable for them. Okay? That's the Maturidi position. So there's a difference between the Ash'ari and Maturidi position on that front. Okay, and then I'm going to explain to you what the Athari position is and what Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah's position is. But give me 1 second here because I just got to actually plug in my laptop. I noticed my battery's about to die. Give me 1 second. Okay, guys. So now let's see, what do the Ethnies believe about this? Do we believe that there are things which can be known regarding ethical norms prior to revelation? Or is it solely based on revelation? And this is an issue which is known, which JaFED wouldn't know because he doesn't actually study the Islamic tradition properly. He's too busy in Starbucks slurping down his favorite latte with Andani. It's the issue called tahsin wa taqbih, okay? Which is good and evil, right? It's over the issues of good and evil. And what is their status? Can they be known apart from revelation? Are things good in themselves, or is it based merely on God's arbitrary will? And all of these types of questions, okay? So, what is the Ethnic position? What is Ibn Taymiyyah's position? Well, in the same text I quoted earlier from John Hoover, he says this. Remember, we're talking about reason, that Ibn Taymiyyah believes you could prove that God exists. He says this, and I quote, John Hoover, Western academic, beyond knowledge of God's existence, Ibn Taymiyyah believes that basic religious and ethical truths are also known by reason. Reason knows that the Creator must be the sole object of worship and that nothing may be associated with him. Reason also knows which human actions are good, hasan, and which are bad, right? He knows both. This is because good and bad, reduced to the difference between suitability, pleasure, profit, and benefit for the agent on the one hand, and unsuitability, incompatibility, pain, harm, and the detriment of the other. At the other end, so what is he saying about Ibn Taymiyyah's position? Ibn Taymiyyah believes that human beings know and can know good and evil through aql, through reason alone, apart from revelation. Okay? Then he says, critiquing the position that JaFED is accusing Daniel of, and all Muslim traditionalists of. He says, at the other end of the spectrum is the Ash'ari divine voluntarism or theistic subjectivism, which is what JaFED is talking about, in which good and evil, good and bad, depend solely on God's arbitrary will. Acts are good or bad only because God commands or prohibits them. There are no attributes in acts making them good or bad. Their value can be known only by revelation. So that's the Ash'ari view. Their value can only be known by revelation. He says, Ibn Taymiyyah claims polemically that the Ash'aris make God's command wholly arbitrary and devoid of regard for human benefit. So the Ethnies and Ibn Taymiyyah are against this position and attempt to refute the Ash'aris on this. Do you see? Do you see that? Unbelievable. So we believe that there are certain ethical norms that can be known apart from revelation. Okay? And Ibn Taymiyyah refutes the idea of theistic subjectivism and refutes the Ash'ari notion that good and bad are simply based on God's arbitrary will. So you've been caught and busted again by another Western academic. John Hoover again, showing you that you don't understand our position. Okay? Very simple. Now, let me go further. Let me go back to the video. Let me go back to the video because he makes another blunder in the video. Okay? Because now he talks about free will. So he lied about our position on reason and revelation. He lied about our position about anthropomorphism, and we caught him red-handed with his, fake sheikh, Wesley Muhammad. We caught him red-handed on his lies about Ibn Taymiyyah and the Ethnic position on metaethics and morality. And now we're going to catch him lying again about our position on free will and what's called secondary causation. Watch this. We're going to catch him again. Here we go.
Bible, and that would make it right. This is a strict divine command theory, and of course, this is why they side with slavery and enslavement. And
he said, because of that position which the Ash'aris have, which we don't have, and which Ibn Taymiyyah criticizes, that's why, you know, Daniel's taking these what he considers immoral views. So his poor research leads him to conclusions or assumptions about Daniel, which Daniel doesn't agree with. Straw man, misrepresentations, poor research, lies, conspiracy, taking sources from conspiracy theorists, etc. Come on, dude.
Sex slavery, because they think that this is prescribed in their revelation. So the idea is very simple. The Quran endorses free will. God does not force humans to believe, so you should not force them to believe either. Unfortunately, the Sunni tradition went in the other direction and went into complete fatalism and denied free will. And it also denied secondary causality, which is...
So he says we deny...
And it went into complete fatalism and denied free will. And it also denied secondary causality.
Again, he says the Sunni tradition denied free will, and it also denied secondary causality. Well, guess what? Again, he's talking about the Ash'ari position. What does he have there? A refined explanation of the Sanusi Creed. What is the Sanusi Creed? That's not an Athari text. By who? Sheikh Saeed Fauda. And guess what, guys? Do I know anything about it? Yes, I have the book right here. By the way, the debate only happened 2 days ago, so I didn't just buy it off of Amazon and get it. I have it, read it, okay? So, come on, bro. Sanusi Creed, you're trying to use that against him when you're claiming that he's an Hanbali Salafi, and you're using the Sanusi Creed against Daniel? Okay. So, he claims that the Ash'aris, or the traditionalists in general, believe what? They don't believe that humans have free will. Of course we do believe that humans have free will. And then he says, Sunni traditionalists also deny secondary causality. Now, this is an important point. Listen to this.
Other direction. It went into complete fatalism and denied free will. And it also denied secondary causality, which is honestly very silly.
He said, and they also denied secondary causality, which is honestly very silly. Well, JaFED, I'll throw you another bone here. The Ash'aris do deny secondary causality. And I agree with you that it is pretty silly. And that's why I could never be an Ash'ari, because it's a ridiculous position. But it's not a position that the Atharis or Ibn Taymiyyah hold. We believe in secondary causality. Okay?
But we Islamic rationalists argue that it is our unique gift of intellect from which our...
But I'm going to show you that in a second. See, Daniel was already shaking his head because he knows this guy's a liar, but he didn't even follow him down these silly rabbit trails and red herrings because it had nothing to do with the debate. So good on Daniel.
Animals. It is what makes us humans.
So we don't need Ramadan.
Okay. So, and I'll get back to that video in a second. So let's see. Did Ibn Taymiyyah believe that humans have free will? And that did he explain that we believe in secondary causality? Let's go to John Hoover again. What does John Hoover say in his book? Okay. What does he say? He has a whole section on Ibn Taymiyyah and secondary causality. He says this. This is a quote from Ibn Taymiyyah, actually, that John Hoover cites regarding this issue of secondary causation. He says, we don't believe in secondary causation, and that's a silly position. I agree. It's silly, but we do believe in secondary causation. So Ibn Taymiyyah says this: along with this, the people of guidance and prosperity do not deny what God creates of secondary causes by which he creates effects. For example, he, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, exalted as he, said, it is he who sends the winds, till when they have carried a heavy laden cloud, we drive it to a land that is dead. Then we send down rain to it, and thereby we bring forth every kind of fruit. Qur'an chapter 7, verse 57. Again, he, exalted as he, said, quote, by the book God guides whoever who follows his good pleasure to ways of peace. Qur'an 5:16. He exalted as he said, by this parable he leads many astray, and by it he guides many. Qur'an or Surah Al-Baqarah chapter 2 verse 26. Thus he informed that he acts by means of secondary causes. Then here's the criticism of the Ash'ari position, which JaFED was talking about. This is Ibn Taymiyyah talking. Whoever, meaning a strict Ash'ari, says that he acts with them and not by means of them, biha, opposes what the Qur'an has brought and denies what God has created of potencies, quwwa, powers, and natures. Whoever opposes the idea whoever opposes the idea of secondary causation, according to Ibn Taymiyyah, which is the Ash'ari view, opposes what the Qur'an has brought and denies what God created of potencies and natures. This is similar to denying what God created of potencies that are in living beings, by which living beings act, like the power of the servant. So the servant himself has the quwwa, has a power to actually act, has the potency to act. This is what Ibn Taymiyyah said. So does he reject secondary causation? No. Now, that was what Ibn Taymiyyah said. Now, this is John Hoover's explanation of that text. He says, in other texts, Ibn Taymiyyah gives numerous examples of God's creation through secondary causality. The Tadmuriyah, which is a famous text written by Ibn Taymiyyah, passage translated above includes polemic first against includes a polemic first against those who say that God creates only with or at the instance of the causes, but not by them. This is leveled against the tradition of strict Ash'arism, in which whatever appears to be causally connected is simply a matter of God creating things conjoined at the same place and time. So the view that JaFED is talking about, Ibn Taymiyyah criticizes, and John Hoover is mentioning that. He says the human act does not occur by means, okay, and then he goes on and on further. So the point is, Ibn Taymiyyah affirms secondary causality, affirms that the human beings have a quwwa, have a power, and he affirms that secondary causality. Humans have that, right? And secondary causality exists in creation. There are potencies and natures. And he says to deny that, you're going against the Qur'an. Now, furthermore, John Hoover says, Ibn Taymiyyah adds furthermore that God makes one thing a cause of another thing, and that what God has determined has been determined to happen by means of secondary causes. In summing up these positions, Ibn Taymiyyah cites a saying which he elsewhere attributes to Al-Ghazali and Ibn al-Jawzi in their writings on complete trust or complete faith. So here's what Ibn Taymiyyah quotes from Ghazali and what he's criticizing. Obliterating the causes by denying that they are causes is an aberration with respect to reason. Abandoning the causes entirely is defamation of the law. So he's saying, taking the position of the Ash'aris, Ibn Taymiyyah is saying, taking the position of the Ash'aris of denying secondary causation goes against reason and goes against the Qur'an. Do you see that? So when JaFED, when you say it's silly, we agree. That's why we don't have the Ash'ari position. So don't quote the Sanusi creed, right, when you're dealing with an ethety like Daniel. You can't use Imam Ahmed against him and then say, he must also accept what the Ash'aris say and deny secondary causality. You're all over the place. Sloppy research, sloppy argumentation, misrepresentation. You're terrible on all fronts, bro. Sorry, dude. Now, Back to John Hoover. He quotes and he references this passage from Ibn Taymiyyah. He says, the strict Ash'aris obliterate the causes. He, meaning Ibn Taymiyyah, notes that obliterating the causes is not only an imperfection in reason, but also defames the law. So it's against reason and revelation. And he identifies this position with many of the Kalam theologians, the Mutakallimin, presumably the Ash'aris. Regarding the third part, the Sheikh, meaning Ibn Taymiyyah, says that abandoning the causes entirely is not only defamation of the law, but also irrational. And he censures those who think their deeds play no role in what will happen to them because of divine determination or qadr. So this completely refutes your claim that we deny secondary causation and we deny free will. You don't know what you're talking about, dude. You're a liar and you're an ignoramus. That's all it is. Now, let me go back to the video here. Let me go back to the video here. Okay. So here we go with JaFED repeating the same garbage about fideism and irrationality.
Like, why can't you, what blocks that kind of argument, Javad? Like, this is the problem. This is why you're a liberal bot. This is why your methodology results in the complete destruction of Islam. Because every single rule within Islam, Ramadan, fasting in Ramadan, prayer, Hajj, even belief in Allah, belief in the Qur'an, belief in heaven and hell, they can all be portrayed as some relic of the past. Now we're in different times. We're in different contexts. We have to adapt.
So Daniel is now showing his fideistic nature, which is not
Daniel is showing his fideistic nature, which I already refuted. We're not fideists.
Some skeptic at all, but just fideism, which is just follow.
It's just fideism.
Reports, and then you have to accept that God has a face, curly hair, was a young boy. You have to accept all this, like Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Ibn Taymiyyah did. But
you have to accept. Listen, he lied again, which we showed. We already refuted that lie. He said you're a fideist, and you have to accept that God is a man. When we refuted that, lying and slandering Imam Ahmad and Ibn Taymiyyah. We refuted that claim, and he repeated it again.
That's what makes the difference between people who are rationalist believers and use their brain and the fideists who say debate, logic, theology, philosophy, all of these are haram. Science, anti-science, let's believe in flat earth, let's deny the moon landing. Now, as far as how
flat earth, see all the lies. He repeated all those lies again from his opening statement, which we just refuted over the past 2 hours.
How we deal with news, the outside critique is just reflexively rejected by the fundamentalists. But when the modernist gets a critique, they ask first, is the critique scripturally valid? If yes, we change our position. If no, then we ask, is the critique philosophically valid? If yes, then we change our position. If yes, we reevaluate the scriptural data and then go in the circle again. If it's not philosophically valid, then we say no and we keep our original position. So there is a sensible paradigm that we follow. It's not just fideism like you follow. So just admit that you're not actually using moral arguments for anything because you're a fideist. You just believe that the text says that, so you must follow it, and then you use not reason instrumentally. But the reality is that even Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal said that you can't even do that. Don't do reason debate. Maybe that would be better for you.
Like, this is embarrassing.
No, it would be better for you if you didn't do debate, because you've been exposed as a liar over the past 2 hours on all of those claims which you just repeated. Okay? So that's what it would be better, if you would stop lying against our imams and the shuyukh and the ulama of this ummah. That's what it would be better for, because we already caught you and busted you down on all your lies. Now, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything else before I go on to this next section here with Brother Daniel. Okay, because I got 7 pages of notes here. All right, now, okay. Let me go to the part which was masterful by Brother Daniel. This is away from the opening statement. This is from Daniel, I believe, his opening statement. Let's listen to how he completely anticipated what JaFED was going to do and his liberal bot mentality.
With Harvard, your Harvard PhD now. Now that we've covered HCM, let's talk about liberal religious reform and how reformists like JaVed selectively use HCM for their political ends. Liberalism is a project that emerged in the 18th century in the Enlightenment, philosophical liberalism. Liberalism has always aimed for civilizational progress. Civilizational progress is about scientific advancement and human rights norms. As such, liberals have always had a problem with traditional religions because traditional religions' doctrines conflict with science and liberal human rights norms. So liberals have always had it as their goal to destroy traditional religion. But liberals realize that it's difficult to convince society to completely reject religion. What we need to do is to get people to gradually change their religion. This is called liberal reform. You gradually remove traditional doctrines that conflict with science and liberal human rights. In Europe, liberals just first reformed Judaism and Christianity. Then in the 19th century, colonialism spread liberal reform throughout the rest of the world. Liberal reform can be understood like a very simple computer program or a bot. Take any doctrine like polygyny, multiple wives. Step one is deauthentication. The liberal bot will try to deauthenticate polygyny by saying that polygyny is not actually found in the Qur'an, that all the hadith that support polygyny are fabricated, that polygyny was developed 100 years after the Prophet, etc., etc. HCM is obviously useful for this deauthentication step, but sometimes deauthentication doesn't work. Polygyny is found in the Qur'an. So then the bot is programmed to go to step two, reinterpretation. The liberal bot tries to reinterpret the Quranic verse and do all kinds of goofy mental gymnastics to say that the verse is not actually about marrying multiple wives, it's about gender equality and blah, 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 blah. But sometimes the reinterpretation step doesn't work either. Maybe the verse is too unequivocal and too hard to deny. So the bot moves to step three, temporary concession. The bot is programmed to say, fine, polygyny is something authentic, and it was practiced in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but this was only a temporary thing for those times, in that context. In our times, in our context, polygyny is unacceptable. And if we really focus on the message of the Qur'an, we'll see that it's all about gender equality and giving women their rights. That's the core message of the Qur'an. So clearly, Islam wanted to eventually ban polygamy. So this is the three-step liberal program. This is the basic script that liberal bots have been using for 300 years to strip away all non-liberal religious doctrines. The thing is, once you start using this program, there's no stopping. The program can be used to destroy literally every single religious doctrine. Liberal reformers get their foot in the door with doctrines like slavery and minor marriage, basically the most politically sensitive topics. They pressure traditionalists to renounce these sensitive doctrines, and some traditionalists unfortunately cave. They'll say, well, maybe the hadith are not authentic, or maybe Islam always meant to abolish slavery. Maybe minor marriage was only meant for ancient times, etc. But once the traditionalist concedes on one doctrine, he has no principled basis to reject further reform. So once the traditionalist throws out slavery, then the liberal reformer attacks the next most politically sensitive issue and says, well, you were willing to acknowledge that slavery was a relic of the past. Why not polygyny? Why not hijab? Why not the banning of alcohol? And on and on. Maybe the doctrine of heaven and hell was just a temporary concept meant for people 1400 years ago who couldn't understand higher ethics. But in the 21st century, we obviously understand higher ethics and don't need to be scared like children by the concept of hellfire. So even the concept of heaven and hell should be reformed, or maybe even the concept of worshiping God. People 1400 years ago needed this metaphorical idea of God and worship. But in our time, people are more rational and intelligent. We don't need a concept like God in order to be good people, as long as you believe in some higher power and are nice to others. That's all you really need. In this way, liberal reform completely destroys religion. And that doesn't mean the liberal reformers themselves are atheists. Some of these liberal reformers might even practice religion. The problem is they're using a methodological approach that, when taken to its logical conclusion, obliterates religion. Two examples of religious
So there you go. That was a wow from Daniel. I think in his opening there was like completely telegraphed and anticipated exactly what the liberalist JaFED bot was actually going to do. Now watch, he went through that 3-step process and mentioned to you exactly what happened. Now on one of the issues with jizya, this is what JaFED actually does. Watch this.
As far as jizya, I've already answered.
Rates religion. 2 examples of religious.
As far as jizya, I've already answered your question. It was a historically contingent thing. So no, I don't think that it would be implemented today.
Yeah, so this is the
It was a historically contingent thing. So that's step 3 of the liberalist bot.
the liberal bot saying, oh, well, jizya, we don't apply it today because we have multilateral agreements. The debate topic is about the Qur'an and what the Prophet ﷺ endorsed. It's a historical question. You do this liberal bot move, step 3 of, oh, it was a temporary issue and now we're in a different time. This is the bot. So
he said, this is the bot. So he said it in the beginning, then, and knew he was going to do this liberal bot taking a step 3 and denying the jizya and saying, oh, it was just at this time and blah, 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 blah. And then he did it in the debate with jizya and other things. And boom, Daniel caught him, slapped him upside the head, man. Wow, that was that was great. Yeah, so now after all we said, folks, here's what we caught JaFED lying about, right? As long as it wasn't bad enough that Daniel destroyed him, now he's getting destroyed again on some of his lies he made in the video. He claimed Islamic modernism is more rational than Islamic traditional. That's a lie. What? Based on your fake aqli or so-called moral high ground that you're on? No, we don't buy it for a second, right? He claimed that Ibn Taymiyyah said that it's logic is just bad in a vacuum. No, he didn't say that. It was based on metaphysical concerns and metaphysical principles regarding universals and a distinction between universals and particulars and what is prior to the other, and whether or not the syllogism is necessary, yada, 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 etc. Well, Halak in the same text said it is significant that, despite his intense disapproval of Greek logic, Ibn Taymiyyah insisted on and never retracted the proposition that the categorical syllogism is formally impeccable. So we busted you down there. Your claim over and over about Fideism, we showed you what it actually means and that we do take knowledge from other sources. And I showed you the ethity epistemology based on the Qur'an, chapter 16, verse 77 and 78, that we take truthful reports, empirical findings, and aql, reason. 3 sources for reason. 3 sources for knowledge, sorry. Do we devalue reason? No, of course not. I showed you from John Hoover, from Dr. Karal Sharif, from Hatem al-Hajj, all of them saying the same thing, that reason and revelation for us can never conflict, and that you can know things through reason alone. Through the aql alone, you can know things. You can know that God exists. You can know that he sent prophets. You can know that Islam is true, or that the Qur'an is true. You can know that rational principles. You can know meta ethics. You can know ethical right and wrong, good and bad. All of these things can be known apart from revelation, and revelation confirms it, and reason and revelation can never conflict. Okay, then I quoted directly from Ibn Taymiyyah saying that you can use aqli arguments to prove that God exists. Then we went over your complete blunder of lying about our position that we believe that God is a man, based on a lie and slander against Imam Ahmed radiallahu an, from Wesley Williams, who is none other than Wesley Muhammad, who is a member of the Nation of Islam that believes that Yaqub created the white race in a laboratory or through some experiments from germs of a black person, and he was a black god, and that the black race is God, and all of this nonsense. He believes that God is the black man. This is what your source was, and you're claiming that Daniel is quoting conspiracy theorists and poor academics and Islamophobes and all this kind of stuff. Give it a break, dude. Guy clearly had an agenda to try to make Islam, or to put forward Islamic tradition as saying that we believe that God is a man, when we don't believe this. We went over the hadith. We talked about the hadith. If you do accept that it is a genuine or sound narration, then we understand it as a dream, and that it is haram to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually resembles a boy with carrot. That there's another position which says that the hadith is not authentic, and that's up for dispute. There's ikhtilaf on that. But either way, neither position supports your claim. You also claim that we believe that the earth is flat and that we're basically flat earthers. I quoted from the Sapiens article demonstrating that Ibn Taymiyyah cited an ijma' on the fact that we believe good and evil. And what was Ibn Taymiyyah's position? Can you know good and bad apart from revelation, meaning from the aql alone? Of course you can. And that he critiques the Ash'ari position, which JaFED was bringing up. We don't agree with the Ash'aris on that. So you don't know that. And you were also didn't even consider the Maturidi position, which also disagrees with the Ash'aris. Then on the issue of free will, you lied and said we reject free will. We do believe in free will, and you said we also deny secondary causality. I showed you that, again, that's a straw man. You use the Sanusi Creed to put that on us, which we reject, and we consider that position to go against the Qur'an and Sunnah. It's against the naql and against aql. It's against reason, which I cited directly from Ibn Taymiyyah saying that, and John Hoover interpreting the text from Ibn Taymiyyah in exactly the same way. And he criticizes the Ash'ari position regarding that. Then you repeated all of that over and over again, and you're back and forth with Daniel and other parts of the debate. Same garbage about Fideism and irrationality. All of that has been thoroughly refuted. We've exposed your lies. You got absolutely destroyed by Brother Daniel. He telegraphed exactly what you were going to do and then called you out exactly at the right time for you being a liberal bot, Mr. JaFED. You are a kafir, and everybody knows it, and nobody needs to take you seriously. And let me go back to the very beginning of the video to play from Brother Daniel, because I couldn't have said it better myself, of the purpose of this video. Let's take a listen.
And then you use not reason instrumentally, but the reality is that even Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal said that you can't even do that. Don't do reason debate. Maybe that would be better for you.
Like, this is embarrassing. Like, I can't believe that you are
be better for you.
So this is my summary presented by Daniel of everything that just happened in this video.
Like, this is embarrassing. Like, I can't believe that you are taken as a serious historical scholar. I think this debate has really exposed you as a charlatan. This is not academic at all. You can't publish any of this kind of stuff. And this is why I agreed to have this debate with you, because I want to expose, like, what is the reality of Harvard academics. Like, Harvard academics are not people to be intimidated by.
Exactly. They're jokes. That's the whole point.
These Islamic studies scholars, they're people like Juan Cole saying that the Prophet ﷺ is like Martin Luther King, or he's like a senator and he has this peace march into Mecca. Like, this is the kind of nonsense that your institution, your departments produce. And every traditional Muslim, you know, even like a first-year student of Islamic studies can completely destroy all of your arguments. They just need, you know, certain pointers. For example, this debate, I'm bringing all of these historical sources from your own academics, from your own books that are seen as authoritative by your side, and you can't even address any of those. Like, this is a complete debunking of your entire claim to be this historical critical scholar. No, it's a joke. You're a propagandist. You're a trained SEAL, and this is why it's so easy. You're appealing to your credentials at Harvard. I'd recommend not citing that, because basically you're bringing down Harvard's name, and that's good. You know, people really need to understand that this is what Islamic studies academics are all about. Like, this is the level. Like, it's a joke. Like, you having a degree or a PhD from Harvard, now people will realize that it means really nothing. It means like the Prophet ﷺ was like MLK or a senator. Like, that's what they're going to associate with Harvard, your Harvard PhD now. Exactly.
That's what we're going to associate with your Harvard PhD now. it's meaningless. We don't care. You're absolutely worthless. You've been thoroughly refuted. You've been caught lying. You've been shown that you're an ignorant individual and that you should not be taken seriously whatsoever. We don't give a damn if you're from Harvard or Yale or Oxford or wherever. It's irrelevant to us. Anyway, guys, that is going to, I can't end it on a better note than that. Andrew Phone just sent a 199 super sticker. Shout out to that. Guys, if you haven't checked out the debate already, check it out and go watch the destruction that just ensued. Apparently, they're supposed to have another debate. I don't think JaFED is even going to show up for that. That's why he made an excuse not to come. But anyway, nobody should take them seriously, as I'm saying. Beautiful explanation by Daniel of exactly what this video is meant to convey. And I thank you all for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video and you benefited from it, or you benefit from my channel in general, please consider giving a thumbs up to the video. Helps with the algorithms. Give a comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And again, if you don't like me, do all the opposite. Unsubscribe, give a thumbs down, leave a mean comment. I really don't care. But if you do benefit from it, in all seriousness, please consider that. Share it on your social media platforms, no matter how big or how small. And also, if you want to go above and beyond and support the channel for me to be able to have more free time to do more live streams and things like this in the future, then please consider clicking on the link that is pinned in the chat, which is a GoFundMe. It's the best way to support my work because not much percentage is taken out of it, whereas with YouTube and Patreon, they take 30 or 40%. Okay, so please consider donating and supporting the channel. And I'm not sure when the next live stream will be or when the next video will come out, but inshallah, I've been a bit busy, more busy lately, so I haven't been able to do as many live streams and things like that over the past couple months. But look out for that in the future. And I am supposed to go on the arena with on Hamza's Den. I think Brother Daniel is going to be there, if I'm not mistaken. Daniel and Hamza from Hamza's Den, the arena, in a couple weeks' time. Not this Friday, but the following Friday. Look out for that. I think we're still on for that, inshallah. Other than that, there are no really other updates going on. And I will let you guys know in the future if we have any upcoming streams. Follow me on social media. On Twitter is where I'm the most active and I post updates, and you can check that out there. So once again, guys, thank you all for watching. I hope that this was of some benefit for you, that you guys got some information out of it. Inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. If I don't see you guys before Wednesday or Thursday, Eid Mubarak to everybody out there. It is going to be Eid al-Adha. And so I hope that it is a great time for you guys. These 10 days, as we know, are some of the most blessed days of the year. So, you know, the dua and the ibadah and all of this, we should be engaging in this as much as we can during this time, inshallah. Anyway, guys, see you all next time. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.